All right. Welcome back. This is going to be our very last live stream of the year. I am joined by my two friends, Michael and Wes. As always, we're excited to be with you guys. We're going to take next week off for Christmas, the following week off for New Year's, and then we are going to be starting our new live streaming schedule. Is going to be, instead of once, we're going to do 3 times every single week. We're going to start the first full week of January. So January 6th, that Monday, will be our first live stream after this in the new year. And we'll be doing Monday, and then we'll be doing the 8th Wednesday, and then the 10th on Friday. And we're going to be doing Monday, Wednesday, Friday every single week starting January 6th, that Monday, at 3 p.m. Central Time. So 3 live streams every single week starting in the new year, January 6th being the first one. This is the last one for this year. And with that new schedule, again, it'll be Monday, Wednesday, Friday, 3 p.m. Central Time, and January 6th is our first one. And we're just before we started recording, we were kind of just rolling around the idea of maybe seeing if we can get Charles Haywood or somebody to hop on the show as a guest with us during one of the segments and just kick it off with a bang. It's January 6th and talk about what Trump needs to do with the J6ers and pardoning. And it's not just enough to pardon. Remember that to wield power correctly, I once said at an Ogden conference and got grief about it for like 3 months straight on the internet. Typical, anytime I say something, I'm going to get grief. But what I said was to wield power properly, we need to not just be good to our friends, reward our friends, but also punish our enemies. So my prayer and hope is that J6ers get pardoned by Trump, but that's not enough. That's the reward your friends. But there's also the crushing your enemies portion that is absolutely vital. Bunch of people need to go to jail. So some guys need to get out of jail, and then those who are actually wicked need to be put in jail. And so we're going to probably talk about that as our first live stream on January 6th, Monday, the year of our Lord 2025. I think that'll be really good. Just for the record, because I always get in trouble with the, reward your friends, crush your enemies. Here's the deal. When I say that, what I'm saying is Christians, not the church as an institute, but Christians who are part of the church, of course, but they also make up various spheres of life. You have Christians in the civil magistrate. You have Christians who are business owners. You have Christians in media. You have Christians who are doctors. You have Christians in all these different spheres of life. So you as an individual Christian, not the church institute, but individual Christians making up a collective in whatever sphere of life the Lord has called them in terms of vocation as fathers and mothers and their various jobs, using legal means, godly, righteous means, to punish those who do evil and reward or praise those who do righteous. Christians, we want to have a Christian government, and a Christian government would do Christian things. Romans 13. So Christians in the civil magistrate, in that sphere, they would be rewarding, praising those who do good and punishing those who do evil, and putting people in jail for 4 years, and lying about the charges and those kinds of things and what happened, that's evil. So those people need to be punished.
Destroying like fathers, destroying their lives over nonviolent trespassing offenses.
Right. Right. So that'll probably be our first episode, January 6th. Again, the schedule is going to be 3 times a week, Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, starting January 6th at 3 p.m. Central Time. This is the last live stream of this year, and we thought that we would land the plane this year by trying to dot I's and cross T's by answering questions from you guys. What are some things that are outstanding in your minds over the course of 2024 that you would like clarity on? Maybe things that we've said, maybe, I don't know, maybe it's about the future. Maybe we're going to get into some announcements and vision for, the future, but we also want to basically chart a course for next year. And drop some vision and announcement and goals and things like that. But we also want to try to wrap up loose ends for this year, 2024. So we've asked you guys ahead of time. Some of you have posted some things on X. Some of you have posted things on YouTube. But we want to try to deal with questions. Primarily, we're going to be looking at the chat. Let me check with Nathan real quick. Were we able to live stream simultaneously on X in addition to YouTube? Great. If anybody's listening on X, put something in the chat real quick. Right now, all I see is from YouTube. So got a lot of people on YouTube. If you're watching right now on X, if you could just, what would it be? Just leaving a comment and it would pop up?
What's up? Hey, fellas. Good to be here.
But it would just be in the comments.
I don't think that.
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's showing on the top.
All right. Our technician, Nathan, he says it's working. So if you're on X or on YouTube, in the live chat right now, go ahead and start dropping your questions. It looks like we're getting some. Nathan, if you can start organizing those. We had a few that people got in preemptively that I think we want to start with some of those. Is there one in particular that you guys want to start with? There's one that you guys know I want to get to. Should we start with that one?
We should, yeah. Did you want to mention any of the...
Yeah. You're right. So first, like the video. If you're on YouTube, like it. If you're on X, like it. If you follow us on YouTube, go over to X and make sure that you follow us there also. It's at Right Response M, at Right Response M on X, or search Right Response Ministries on YouTube. So make sure that you're following us on both. Give us a like on this video to help the algorithm, get it out. Make sure on YouTube to subscribe and to click the bell so that you'll get notifications when we're live streaming next year. In addition to that, I just want to mention one last time, right? So I've mentioned this a few times. I typically don't talk about giving. This last month I have. I definitely have. I acknowledge that. I'm going to talk about it one last time. Q1 2025, I promise I'm going to lay off. But we're right here at the end of the year. We've got some lofty goals. You'll hear about some of that today for 2025. So here with our last live stream, I just want to mention one final time. First, thank you. Many of you have been generous and supporting this ministry. We appreciate it. We can't do it without you. If anybody else feels so inclined, please don't do this at the expense of giving to your local church first. But if you are providing for your family, and you are giving faithfully to your local church, and the Lord has blessed you and increased you in the year of our Lord 2024, and you feel called to do so, then you can go over to rightresponseministries.com/donate. rightresponseministries.com/donate. You will be given promptly in January, February, probably at the latest, a tax receipt. It is tax deductible. Donations, and we greatly appreciate your end of the year giving. It sets us up to be able to accomplish our goals for next year. Okay, so that's all that stuff. So I think we're probably ready to start getting to questions. First question, I don't know. Okay,
we're doing it.
Oh yeah. So the first question is something that I was not really asked in relation to us announcing this live stream, doing a Q&A, but it was something that on the heels of last week. So last week, I was in a great mood, and I thought it was. Michael even said he was like, "Hey, this was really tame. We didn't get in trouble.
Yeah, we were jovial.
And we were jovial. There was no like super controversial topic that we breached, but we still got in trouble. So I got in trouble. I got in trouble. What did I get in trouble for? I got in trouble. Basically, one of the things that I said, and a few guys came out and defended me, and I appreciate that. But I said, one of the things that conservatives do, and I said it jokingly. I was dead serious. I absolutely believe it because it's a fact. But I said it in a joking, jovial kind of demeanor. But part of the reason that I did it in that demeanor is because I didn't think anybody would, in their right mind, would disagree. Right. Exactly. Right. So what I said was, anytime conservatives want to take ground or hold the line or make some kind of big, faithful conservative statement, they immediately think, all right, we need to say something that's true. Let's find a black man or a woman or someone other than a white heterosexual Christian man. Right. In order to make this point that we're about to make. So we're about to say something, and we need somebody who's diverse, in order to make this point for us. And so then I said, so conservatives will be thinking, like, all right, we need, quick, we need to hold the line here or make a statement there. Quick, somebody on speed dial, call Samuel Say, or call Allie Beth Stuckey. And I got in big trouble for this. I was not saying that Samuel Say has never said anything good. Right. I'm just saying that sentiment of conservatives, especially conservative Christians, and especially conservative Christian pastors, to think I can't just say this. Right. I need to get somebody else to say it. That is a wrong inclination. That's absolutely wrong. But I did say so. Samuel Say whatever. That's fine. But with Allie Beth, I went one step further.
And sorry, Joel. Just to be clear, you also weren't saying that if a black man says something, it's inherently less well thought through.
No.
Or less.
Not inherently.
Right.
Could be. Depends on the
Well,
black
sure,
man.
absolutely. but
Which one?
that's the case for any person.
Yeah, exactly. So it depends on who it is. Exactly. It
Because I
depends on
did
the
see
white
some
man.
people who were
Depends on the black
saying,
man.
"Are you saying that if a black guy says something, it's immediately inferior?"
No,
And
that
that's
wasn't
not
the
what
point.
we were saying.
The point was, sure, let Samuel say it. But the white guy should be saying it too.
Yep.
You don't have to wait for him to come or call him specifically in order to be, the flying geese. He's the one, at the point man who's going to, take on the resistance, and he has to be, at the tip of the spear to, to come out and say it first. That was the point. So anyway, so that's, Samuel say that's fine. Ali Beth, though, I went one step further and I said, we don't need to pick up the phone and call Samuel say. We also don't need to do it with Ali Beth. And I said, Ali Beth says some really good, strong, courageous, true things. And I'd love to see her say more of that in her home with her children. That's what got me in trouble. All right. So I'll pause for a second. What do you guys think about, what do you think about that statement that I made?
I think what you're saying is a woman's primary focus and role in ministry is in her home.
Yep.
It blows my mind that you saw, especially 2015 to 2020, man, like secular culture, that was all the rage. Standpoint epistemology. We got to bring someone else in because only a woman, only a black person, only a black woman, only a black trans woman could ever be able to truly tell us what it's like to experience this. So sure, that's secular. And then the church said, man, that's awesome. What if we did the same thing here? Let's do our panel on racism. Let's bring in our token minority. Right. So it blows my mind that Christians would think we got to do that too.
That I'd be remiss if I didn't mention is I really do think was Vodi Bakum. Vodi Bakum in 2012. He was one of the first. He was one of the first guys. So it wasn't just like, hey, we're going to get him because he's an Uncle Tom, and he, so he'll do our bidding for us, No, he was actually doing the noticing, as the kids say, before pretty much anybody else. 2012.
Incredible.
I think it was 2012 that he coined the phrase
ethnic Gnosticism.
Ethnic Gnosticism,
cultural Marxism.
Cultural Marxism and ethnic Gnosticism. And ethnic Gnosticism was based essentially standpoint epistemology. That you can epistemology being how do we know what we know? How do we come to know things? And standpoint epistemology meaning that that based off of your whatever if you're black or if your levels intersections of oppression, the more of those that you have, if you're black plus a woman plus a lesbian plus whatever else, then you are an elite, enlightened individual who can know many things that other people can't. So, anyways, Vodi was one of the first guys beating that drum, which I'm super grateful for. Okay, what were we talking about?
I thought you were going to clarify what you said about as a general rule, you don't have women on the show anymore.
Yeah. So so that's how I got in trouble. People didn't like what I said. Ali Beth. I basically said, like MacArthur with Beth Moore, go home. I basically, I said it a little nicer than MacArthur said. But I, that same sentiment, and I applied it to Ali Beth Stuckey, and people didn't like that. And so because they didn't like it, one of the things that they brought up is, well, this seems hypocritical. You've had women on the show. I think the last woman that I had on the show, and that's true, the last woman that I had on the show was Rosaria Butterfield, who is, I think, the best of conservative women. Because she doesn't, to my knowledge, she doesn't have like a regular, podcast. Certainly not a regular podcast where she's, going out of the home into a company studio 5 times a week, doing hair and makeup. So you got the drive time, you got the hair and makeup, you got prep with your team, those kinds of things, and then going in and then recording and then coming back. Where it really is a full-time job. But Rosaria, pretty much anytime I've even seen anything with her. It looks like webcam at home, and it's not a regular weekly thing. Certainly not a daily thing. It's usually she writes a book about once every 5 or 6 years, and whenever she writes a book, she does the circuit. Right. She makes the rounds and goes on people's podcasts. And so this was right after her most recent book. I think I can't remember 5 Lies.
The 5 Lies book.
So I asked her to come on the show. A lot of other guys that are friends and had her on the show, and I was like, that seems like a good idea. I'll have her on the show. She did great. Yep. The show's still available. You can check it out. I don't plan on taking it down. But that was the last time. And after that, I decided, you know what? Rosaria is great. Nothing wrong about Rosaria, and I think she does this in the best way possible, right? It's not her day job. She is predominantly domestic. She's
an
in the
older
home.
woman. She's
and
raised
she's
children,
older.
been faithful,
Exactly.
and
She doesn't have a toddler. She doesn't have a baby. Exactly. So she has grown children. She's a grandma. She's very involved with her grandchildren, but she has spare time because grandchildren are different than young children that are yours. And she's doing it on a 5-year cycle where she makes the rounds and blah 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 related to a book. So that's probably the best way to do it. But I thought I don't have time, nor is it really particularly helpful for me to explain that every single time, once every 5 years when I have Rosario on the show, or somebody else that's in that kind of orbit, who's similar. It's just going to be difficult to explain this every single time. The simplest solution is I probably should everybody knows my patriarchal stance, and I probably should just try, for the sake of simplicity and clarity and consistency, to not have women any longer. And I made that decision. I think around the same time, Eric Kahn made the same decision because he had Nancy Piercy around the same time that I had Rosario Butterfield, because she had just written a book, something about toxic masculinity. Exactly.
Against it. She was saying masculinity is not toxic. She's not.
Yeah, she was in defense of masculinity being a good thing. But she wrote her book, and I didn't interview her, but I did interview Rosaria. I think Eric Kahn on Hardman podcast, he interviewed Nancy Piercy and got some grief after that, and was like, yeah, I guess honestly, Hardman podcast probably should have men, and so I remember talking offline, me and Eric, about that, and we both kind of were like, yeah, we have our caveats, we have our reasons for why this is actually an exception and this falls within the biblical mode, and that we're not, but it still could, it could still cause people to stumble, where it's like, well, Joel had a woman on the podcast. And so some, 30-year-old woman with, 4 kids in the home who are all underneath, the age of 8 years old, decides I'm going to podcast every day for hours, so anyways, so that was the decision. And then I think the final thing was, some people pointed out, they were like, well, Joel went on Allie Beth's show, and then Allie Beth, she couldn't miss an opportunity to go ahead and just get that little jab,
dunk on your boy,
dunk on him. And so she's like, yeah, and he paid for it. And so I just thought I'd clarify that. You're probably going to still hate me. That's fine. Whatever. I'm not going to win you over, but I'll give my answer. So it was 2020. I believe it was, I don't know, April, May, sometime in the first half of the year, maybe mid-year, maybe it was June. It was during COVID. I was pastoring in Southern California at the time, and I just finished writing my first book. It was simple little book, but I preached through 1 John on the Lord's Day with the church, and then I took all my manuscripts and things like that and outlines and put that into a book form, like a devotional style book on the assurance of salvation. And I titled the book, Am I Truly Saved? And so when I finished that, I wanted to try to somehow get it out there. And so I believe there was only 2. This is 4.5 years ago, so it's hard to remember, but Just Thinking podcast, Virgil Walker and Daryl Harrison. I had some measure of relationship with them, still have some relationship with Virgil, who I think highly of. He's a good guy. And so I reached out to them and said, hey, can I run an ad for my book on an episode of your show? And they said, sure. And then, I also asked, like, you think I could come on? And they didn't really have guests. It was just the 2 of them. Right. And also I'm white. And Virgil said, you're white, Joel, I can't have you. No, I'm just kidding. He didn't say that. No, it's because I'm white. No, it's not. And so they're like, no, we're not going to have you on. No harm, no foul. But yeah, we'll run an ad. And I paid them, I think, based off of their show size at the time, it wasn't super massive then. And so I think it cost, these are spitballing numbers, but I think it was like $250, something like that, to run it on one episode. So we ran the commercial for my little book over 1 John, Assurance of Salvation, Am I Truly Saved? Paid him $250. Same thing, reached out to Allie Beth Stuckey and said, can I advertise my book? So it wasn't, can I pay you to come on the show? It was, can we pay you to advertise my book? And same thing, I think hers was like $750 because she had a bigger platform, and I think it was a fair price. And we're like, sure, we'll pay you $750 to advertise our book. And then we also, as soon as they said yes to the advertisement of the book, not paying for airtime, but paying for advertising the book, then I said, also, I'm working through COVID and these kinds of things and trying to take a stand in California, which is, we got Governor, Mussolini, and the restrictions are insane. And I know that you've been talking about COVID and those kinds of things. Everybody has. Would you be willing to have me on for a segment? And she agreed and said yes. So I went on because I was wanting to get the word out. Paid for an advertisement of the book, wanted to get the word out about that. And then I went on the show because I wanted to get the word out about why pastors, particularly pastors in California, needed to be courageous about COVID. And that was 4.5 years ago. And here's a crazy thing. I said it on X a few days ago, but not everybody knows it. Not everybody sees all my tweets. So I'll say it right now. And I know this is rough, but I have actually changed my views over time. I've actually been in development as a human being. I am not the same yesterday, today, and forever. Behold, I am Joel. I changeth, yes. I am not immutable, but rather mutable. In fact, and this one is really crazy. It will probably freak a lot of you guys out. But when I was born, I didn't even know how to talk. I had to learn how to speak.
Embarrassing.
Everything.
It's embarrassing.
It's embarrassing. Like,
It is embarrassing.
So like, even my
You had to learn
ability
to
to
control your
speak
bowels.
is constitutes a development and change of my person. And so pretty crazy. I know. That's enough explaining. Like, there's a certain point where it's like, I want to offer clarity for the good faith people, but here's the thing that's tough about this, because we debated, like, should we even say anything? Wes was like, screw him. Like, don't say anything.
Those words.
Like, you didn't say that, but you're right.
But essentially.
Essentially, that's, you're like, forget them. Like, and Wes, I think, is sharp about these things. What you were saying when I brought up, like, hey, I think I want to clarify this, because I'm getting dragged, as the kids would say, and you're like, no, like, he said, because it's a 1 in 100 ratio of good faith people who actually are confused and simply require clarity. Right. And then the 99 people who hate you and have hated you consistently all the way back to 2.5 years ago because you told your wife not to read a book on paedobaptism and that you would read it together with her at a later time. Right. Because you're a Credo Baptist pastor. In other words, people just hate you. They like, most people have already made up their mind. And they're going to, like, this will mean nothing. Your explanations, your clarity, it doesn't matter what excuse, it doesn't matter what details we're missing, in the conversation. You provide those details, and it's like, here's an ironclad case of, like, one, I was wrong and I've changed by God's grace. That's usually, if you catch me in inconsistency, that'll always be one of the things that I'll say in a response. And I don't think I really said it clearly, so let me say it clearly now. I was wrong and I changed. You can find every couple of weeks, people will find the picture of me standing outside on a stage in a grassy knoll with a couple other officers of the church when I was still in California, wearing the mask behind the pulpit. It was the last Sunday of April. We were doing church outdoors. It was still illegal to do so, an outdoor service at the time. We were way ahead of most churches. And we couldn't meet inside. We would have, but we couldn't meet inside because we didn't have our own building. We got kicked out of the place that we were meeting in. But the point is, everybody will say, oh, you're courageous. Well, look at this picture. And I have my clarifications. The clarifications are, look, this is 7 weeks into COVID. We beat John MacArthur by 10 weeks, and everybody praises him for his courage with COVID. We were meeting 10 weeks before he started meeting. And we weren't meeting inside because we didn't have an inside. We literally didn't have a building. Nobody would let us. We reached out to other churches. They're like, no, we don't want you to get your germs in our church. And I wore the mask because a lot of the congregation said they wouldn't come back unless I did. And a third of them didn't come back even with the mask, at least right away. They waited. And so I have my explanations. However, here's the biggest one. The biggest explanation, whether it's with, going on Allie Beth Stuckey's show, or whether it's wearing the mask, in April 2020 as I'm doing an outdoor service, which is absolutely stupid. People are like 50 yards away from me and I'm wearing a mask. So here's the first and most important explanation, and I missed it earlier, so I need to hit it now. I was wrong. I'm a human being. I'm fallible, and my strategy in ministry is not to just offer clarification. Why? This is what you'll see. Most pastors will do. They'll say, you think you caught me in inconsistency. You think you just discovered an example where I'm wrong. But surprise, surprise, you are wrong. you are wrong in understanding me. You are wrong in your ability to listen to me. You are wrong in not going over my full repertoire of all my work. You're wrong, not me. I don't want to do that. I was wrong. COVID, we were in the top 5% of churches in terms of how quickly we came back and our courage. Yep. But also, we missed 5 weeks of church, and that was wrong. So for 5 weeks, I was wrong. The first quarter of my sermon, first 15 minutes of my sermon, first time we started gathering again, was repentance for shutting down church for 5 weeks. That was wrong. That was sin. I sinned. And the fact that my congregation wanted me to sin doesn't matter. Like, how many kings of Israel in the Bible say, but the people, like Saul, like, oh, the people, but like, doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. I still ultimately chose to do that. So I was wrong for 5 weeks on COVID. I don't think it was wrong to go on. Like, if Candace Owens asked me to go on her show, I would go on her show. I think
or CNN called you, and
right, exactly. There's or what's her Laura Ingram? Is that Fox? Nate?
Yeah, it's Fox.
Like if Fox asked and it was a female host instead of a male host, I would go on. Do I think that she should be doing that? I think she probably should be a mom and stay at home. That's what I think. You guys know that. That's what I think. So no, I don't think she should be doing it. But would I be willing to go on the news to reach an audience 1,000 times bigger than ours on something that I thought was important and needed to be talked about? Like Israel? Yeah, I would. Of course I would. And so paying to advertise a book on a podcast, I don't think is necessarily wrong. I have the clarifications. So I was wrong. COVID, I had my clarifications. We were ahead of most people, but I still got it wrong for 5 weeks. It doesn't matter. I still got it wrong. I sinned. I was wrong. The Ali Beth one, I really don't think is a sin. We paid to advertise a book, and I asked if I could come on the platform and talk about COVID in addition to that. So that I don't actually think is wrong. But I have had, so everyone was like, I got you, here's your inconsistency. I actually don't think that works, because I would still do that to this day. If Candace Owens asked me to come on her show, I would do it. I would. If she personally asked me, do you think I should be doing this? I would say, no. Go home. Go home. Let somebody else do it. But I would go on her show and I would use those means, that platform, to reach as many people as possible today in the present. And I don't think that's an inconsistency. But I would say that where people did get me is not so much you went on Ali's show, but I have had women on my show. And I've tried to have women, whether it's Rosario Butterfield, who's not podcasting all the time, but primarily just a wife and a grandmother, or even some of the Moscow girls, like Rachel Jankovic, who is a mom of 7, and there's a dynamic difference in Ali Bestucky 5 times a week going out of the home to a commercial studio, hair and makeup, hours of time. That is different than Rachel Jankovic in her home,
right? Or Lexi Sauvé.
Yeah, exactly. So Lexi Sauvé, is she in sin? No, there is, and this is why some of the nuances actually do matter. Lexi Sauvé is recording audio only. I don't know, they might have started video, but historically, audio only, in bed with her husband after all the kids are asleep, once a week, and probably not even that, because they usually aren't that consistent and miss weeks. I don't think that's wrong. She's neglecting nothing, and her husband's right there with her on the show, leading the conversation, and the show is not about political philosophy. It's not about teaching seminary students to become pastors. It's on the home. It's called Bright Hearth. It's on the home. So there is a difference here. So it's not just, so typically the women that I've had on the show have been that kind of scenario, your Rosaria types, or Alexi type, or Rachel Jankovic, who is not doing 5 times, a week, going out of, leaving the kids and going out of the home, but is recording occasionally, typically from her home during a nap time or whatever. So that does matter. That said, though, I still think, here's the big one, I still think I was wrong. I think for this, right now, feminism is so pervasive in the church, in the world certainly, but even in the church, it is so pervasive that for a while, even though I know those clarifications and nuances, it is probably not helpful with just the broader optic to continue putting forward, conveying the idea that women belong in the public sphere as public voices, leading discourse, because predominantly they don't. They don't. Now, when I have Rachel Jenkovic, again, it's not how should I had you on the show to talk about how men should be more courageous. No, like I had her to talk about women's ministry, and predominantly how there shouldn't be one. There shouldn't be a formal women's ministry in the church, and that women learn alongside their husbands on the Lord's Day from the biblically qualified elders as they preach the word faithfully. Rosario Butterfield, it was very much mom oriented.
I mean, she kept saying that over and over.
Exactly.
Yep.
So those are all my explanations. I think they matter, but that's all you ever hear. Let's be honest, like from older men, from older pastors, that's all you ever hear is, it's your fault, you misunderstood, I'm right. I'm not going to give repentance, I'm not going to give an apology, I'm just going to give a clarification. So I would like to finish. I gave all the clarifications, but I'd like to finish on the note of an apology. COVID, yeah, we were early, but I still missed 5 weeks, and that was sin. I was wrong. I'm sorry. So next time you see that picture and you just want to, somebody saying, Joel's not really courageous, feel free to answer for me. You can just comment under that picture on X and say, yeah, you're right. He exercised some courage, but he wasn't courageous enough. And he said he's sorry. And he's learned from it. He's going to be more courageous next time. And then, Joel's had women on his show. If it's the Ally Beth thing, yeah, Joel paid for his book to be advertised. It's not a big deal. And then asked if he could come on the show to talk about COVID. But he's had women on his show. Yeah, to talk about womanly things and women who aren't boss babes in 3-piece suits, but are, webcam from home as the kids are taking a nap. But the larger optic, we don't need, I think men should hold this space of public discourse. And so again, Joel says he's sorry. And that's his new policy going forward. And that's been my policy for about a year. So there you go. That's the big controversy from last week. I thought there'd be zero controversy. Yeah. There was a ton. Let's go to our first commercial break. We've got a really special announcement. Yep. You're going to see it in the commercial. We'll talk about it. And then boom, it's your questions. The rest of the show will give you a full hour from here. All right, guys, listen, huge development with our conference. This is the Christ is King Conference, How to Defeat Trash World, happening the year of our Lord, 2025, April 3rd, 4th, and 5th. That's a Thursday through Saturday. Now, we already had an all-star lineup, but we've made it even sweeter. We've got Steve Dace, Orrin McIntyre, Andrew Isker. We've added his co-host from Contramundum, that's CJ Engel. We've got all the Ogden boys, Brian Sauvé, Eric Kahn, Ben Garrett, and Dan Burkholder. Of course, we've got the Christian Prince himself, Dusty Devers, the reasonable Latino, A.D. Robles, and John Harris, the host of Conversations That Matter. But we've also carved out now space for a formal 90-minute debate hosted between Stephen Wolfe and David Reece. The debate is on natural law versus theonomy. And then we've added one more special guest speaker to the lineup, Calvin Robinson. We are super excited about this conference. 8 main sessions, 3 different panels, plus the debate. It's going to be an incredible time that we spend together. Again, this is April 3rd through 5th, 2025, and you can go to rightresponseconference.com to register today. Again, that's rightresponseconference.com to register today. Now, some of you already know this, but I happen to be a huge sucker when it comes to Christmas. In the Webben household, we don't have just one, but 2 appeals to heaven. Yes, I'm talking about 2 Christmas trees in my living room. I love Christmas, always have, always will. And this time of year, because of that, I'm feeling particularly generous. So this is what we're offering. We are going to go back all the way to the early bird pricing. The cheapest, lowest amount for this conference we've ever offered. We're matching that price for anybody who registers now. Go to rightresponseconference.com, and in the promo code, just write Christmas, all caps, Christmas. Promo code is Christmas. Go to rightresponseconference.com and get the lowest price we've ever offered for the conference, but you got to do it by the end of December 31st. Throughout history, a kingsman was someone loyal to their king, someone who served with unwavering dedication and honor. The modern-day kingsman is loyal to the King of Kings, Jesus Christ, proclaiming his sovereignty in every area of life And that's the mission behind Kingsmen Caps. Founded by two brothers, Johnny and Justin Sanchez, Kingsmen Caps exists to proclaim that Christ is King, one cap at a time. And this isn't just any hat. This black and gold colorway is a limited edition, crafted with premium features that you won't find on your average dad hat. Check this out, a crown-shaped sports cap design, diamond air holes for ventilation, a flexible rubber back strap, a plush triple-quilted sweatband for ultimate comfort, and my favorite, the hidden treasure pocket, discreetly located inside the sweat-wicking liner. And don't miss the verse inside, Psalm chapter 2, verses 10 through 12, reminding us to serve the Lord with fear and rejoice with trembling. Again, this isn't just any cap, it's a statement that Christ is King. And right now, you can carry the crown with a specialty holiday discount. Use code KING10 at checkout for savings on this limited edition premium sports cap. Head on over to kingsmencaps.com to grab yours while supplies last. Again, that's kingsmencaps.com. Join the brotherhood and become a modern-day Kingsman, loyal to the King of Kings. Carry the crown because Christ is King. Visit kingsmencaps.com today and use code KING10 for 10% off your entire order. Merry Christmas. Are you a Christian struggling to find companies that align with your values and beliefs? Well, then Squirrelly Joe's has you covered for all your coffee needs. All of their coffee is hand-selected and roasted fresh every day by a family of fellow believers. Try them out and you'll savor exceptional coffee while knowing that your investment supports a company committed to following God's teachings and upholding truth and righteousness, ensuring that your hard-earned money contributes to the growth of God's kingdom. Stop giving your hard-earned dollars to pagans who support evil. Right Response listeners have access to an exclusive deal. Your first bag of coffee is free. All you have to do is cover the shipping. So head on over to squirrellyjoes.com/right response. Again, that's squirrellyjoes.com/right response to claim your first free bag of coffee today. All right, listen, the hat commercial, the hat is fantastic. It is absolutely fantastic.
It is.
But even if they want to keep running the commercial and are willing to pay, the answer is no. I'm sorry, guys. Okay, we'll do it. We'll do it.
Can't keep
we'll
advertising.
do it. All right, you can keep advertising, but we're gonna have to reshoot the commercial because I'm looking at the chat and just ruthlessly mocked. Like what instrument did you play in your emo band? The hair is not good. It's embarrassing. Real quick word about the conference. So if you missed it, that's kind of the announcement. We've been saying, hey, we've got a couple more speakers who are coming on our lineup for the conference April 3rd, 4th, and 5th. Next year. So we're really excited about that. And we have a Christmas code, right, Nathan? Was that part of the commercial? Okay, so the Christmas code is Christmas. Yep, all caps. So all caps, Christmas, and it'll take you all the way back to the early bird pricing. So it'll give you the cheapest price that we have offered ever since we first announced the conference, which is, I think, a really good deal. So type in the promo code Christmas, all caps, Christmas. Go to rightresponseconference.com. Not Right Response Ministries, rightresponseconference.com. Pull up the image.
Hold on. The man in charge, you just wait. You wait to see who this is.
But
we will be ticking your ecumenical Protestant conference box in about 10 seconds.
Yep. All right. So pull it up. So here are your speakers. So we've got Steve Dace, premillennial, more on the Dispy side, more than I would like. Here's the deal. I love Steve. He's a fighter. When everybody else is being a coward, he's fighting. I like Steve. Can't make me not like him. The guy was going hard for Ron DeSantis. My goodness, it was insufferable at times. But as soon as he lost the primary, what did Steve do? He said, I'm not going to be a never Trumper. He lives in the real world. Exactly. He fights with... This is all right. It's like Jackie Chan. I got a ladder. That's my weapon. I got a pipe. That's my weapon. I'll fight with whatever I got. And so he's like, yeah, I think Ron DeSantis is the better guy. Ron DeSantis didn't make it, and so I'm going to vote for Trump. So anyways, I like Steve. Have benefited from his ministry, his podcast. He's coming. I'm excited about that. New speaker, new announcement was Calvin Robinson. I got to go on his show last week, 2 weeks ago, and talk about the subject of Israel and how Christians should view Israel, and that the Judeo-Christian phrase is a psyop. It's a misnomer. It's a oxymoron. We should get it out of our vocabulary. And then we've got Orrin McIntyre, who I think is honestly, in terms of political philosophy, he's one of the brightest and very, very well-read young minds right now that you have in the public space. And so check out his podcast.
In the system.
Yeah, he was a public school teacher.
No, he was in politics. I think he worked for
a couple campaigns.
Yeah, a couple campaigns.
But he was also
yes, you're right.
He was also
You're
a public school teacher, and then so Orrin McIntyre, and he's become a friend. He's got some great stuff. We've got Stephen Wolfe, the author of The Case for Christian Nationalism. We've got Brian Sauvé, who is lead pastor of Refuge Church in Ogden. He's one of the co-hosts for Haunted Cosmos. He's also on the King's Hall podcast. We've got Andrew Isker. He just wrote The Boniface Option. And then in terms of guys that we added, Calvin Robinson is one of them, but related to Isker, we also added CJ Engel. You'll find him down there. You see him on the bottom. CJ Engel is the co-host with Pastor Andrew Isker for their podcast called Contra Mundum. Again, good theology, but also good political philosophy. CJ is a great political mind, especially for his age. Very well read, very well spoken. And their podcast is a huge blessing. Then we've got John Harris. He's going to be coming at the conference. He leads his podcast is Conversation That Matters. He's written 2 or 3, at least 2 great books, uprooting, dismantling social justice within the church. And he was. I gave Vodi Bakum credit, so to make sure that a white guy gets some credit too, because he actually deserves it. John Harris was way early. Way early, calling these things out in the SBC, calling out Al Mohler even, and some of the guys that he was appointing and platforming within Southern Seminary, way before it became cool to call out wokeness. John Harris was talking about it in 2015, 2014, very early. Eric Kahn, he's also on the King's Hall podcast and a pastor with Brian at Refuge Church. Since we're on that topic, we'll go ahead and switch over to Dan Burkholder. He is also at Refuge Church. He's a pastor. He's on the King's Hall. You got Ben Garrett. That's the other co-host with Brian Sauvé on Haunted Cosmos. He's a deacon, soon to be a pastor at Refuge Church in Ogden. So we've got all the Ogden boys. A.D. Robles, you've got the A.D. Robles show that he does on the Fight, Laugh, Feast network. He's also on our board with Right Response Ministries. A.D. Robles, known as the Reasonable Latino. He is, here's his superpower. A.D. Robles has almost nearly infallible instincts. He talked about early adopter, him like John Harris, early adopter, seeing all the problems with social justice. A.D. Robles will just cook out 7-minute videos on YouTube, talk to you in a very blue-collar fashion, not because he couldn't, make it more intellectual, because he's capable of that. Talk to you in a blue-collar fashion for 7 minutes on YouTube, and the moment something happens in the world, the moment something happens in evangelicalism or in the Reformed camp, AD will, his hot take is the right take.
He's got the
almost
best nose.
Every time. Yeah.
He just sniffs it out.
Spidey sense, whatever you want to call it. It's impressive. And he's a great friend. Then we've got the Christian Prince himself, Dusty Devers, Senator Dusty Devers, pastor and a senator. And then we also have my friend David Reece. He's the head of Reece Funds, a Reece Fund, and he's also the head of Weimar Republic, but he's also a local pastor of Puritan Reformed Church. Is that right, Nathan?
Yes.
Yep. Puritan Reformed Church in the larger Phoenix area in Arizona. And so we've got guys who do not like theonomy. We've got guys who are hardcore theonomy. We've got guys who are a little dispy. And then we've got about 14 guys who are not. And we've got the whole gambit here. We've got a high church Anglican. We've got Calvin Robinson. Yep. Because here's the deal. The theme of the conference is how to defeat trash world. We will be talking theology. We will be talking about the church to Christians. But we are also talking politics. We are talking culture. We're talking how to defeat trash world. And for Calvin, just to land on him, because he's the big new announcement, we talked, him and I did a phone call. We were talking about it. And we've asked him specifically to come and talk about what happened in England. Because he's He's a Brit.
England is lost.
Yep. And so he's like, England has fallen. And so, especially London. And so Calvin's going to come and talk about this is what I personally witnessed happen in England, which is what? Trash world is what happened in England.
Happening.
And then him saying it's happening here,
Yep.
but America is behind in a good way. England, it's possible to stop it, but it's going to be hard. America, it's going to be hard, but it's like catching the cancer at stage 2 or stage 3 instead of stage 4. And so that's why we're asking him.
Yep.
We're asking Calvin to come because he's going to talk about his firsthand experience. This is what happened in England. This is how it's happening right here in your country. And here are some of the things I've learned about how to stop it. So that's the conference. All right, rest of the time, questions. Wes.
All right, we're going to get to as many as possible. There might be some. We might not be able to answer them, but we've logged them for hopefully some topics next year.
Yep.
We're streaming a lot, and so there'll be more time to answer some questions, some thoughts, some insights that you guys had. All right, so I'm going to go with just first, you announced this yesterday, some posts that people responded to you before the stream even started. Then we'll get to kind of in chronological order, throw in some super chats. Psalm Warfare on X. Hey, long-time listener, first-time caller. You shared the goals for Right Response Ministries, but what's one personal goal from each of you? Michael, I'll start with you.
Well, I didn't know it was one. I'm going to beef up on my knowledge of economics. I'm going to lose 30 pounds.
Love it.
That's great.
Joel?
Beef up.
I'll go ahead and go.
Go ahead.
All right. I actually got 3. They all relate to 3s. Third child, third house, by God's grace. We have a rental home. I want to continue to build real estate. And then, so third child, third that, and then bench 300 pounds for my 30th birthday. I'll be 30 in April.
That's awesome.
So bench 300, third child, by God's grace, and hopefully buy a third property.
That's great. Great goals. I was going to say beef up some of my political knowledge, like political philosophy, not like current politics and what's happening right now, but understanding of politics. And then personal investments. I want to continue to grow in my investment knowledge, and I've been learning a lot about that this year. Jerome Powell today he literally just got on the stage and said, "Hey, you guys having a good time? You all feeling pretty good? Feeling good about Christmas, the end of the year, the Santa route? Yeah, he came out. He's like, everybody's feeling good. Great. Okay, well, that stops now. That happy feeling, dump it.
His heart was 3 sizes too
Which
small.
here's the deal: like Wall Street has their immediate reaction within, I think, a few days. Definitely by January, but hopefully sooner. Within a few days, what they're going to realize is basically the sentiment is this: that Trump is going to be so good for the economy, and tariffs are going to be good for the American people. That there's so many things that are so bullish for 2025 that the Fed is not going to give us the previous promised 3 rate. We got the rate cut today, 25 basis rate cut, but we're going to get 3 next year, and now it might be 2, and maybe it might be 1,
or maybe 1.
Yeah, or maybe 1, and so the market's like, well, that's terrible, and Tesla, is just a car company, and so rate cuts is the only hope that Tesla has, and like you guys don't understand the world, but you're crazy. But anyways, it's like, all right, we might get less rate cuts because the economy is going to be incredibly good, and Wall Street will realize that within a week. So, and everything, the market will bounce back. But I think we'll get a V-shaped recovery. That said, I want to understand more about investments, and here's why in terms of goals, because it has become just glaringly obvious to me over this last year that for the sake of my family, out of love for them, I need to be bulletproof. I need to be bulletproof because I fully expect bullets to come my way. Like I need to be able, even like with Right Response, I want to be in a position to where I do not have to be financially supported by the church. Right. There's good biblical principles for why that's a good thing to do, but I don't want to need it. I don't want to have to be paid by the church. I don't want. I would like to be able to personally fund Right Response. I'm nowhere near that, but I would like to be able to, that if everyone canceled me, because I think that's going to happen, honestly. They already tried. I think there'll be another try. Eventually, one of the bullets is going to hit me, and I need to, by the time that bullet, luckily my opponents have bad aim, but eventually, the stormtroopers might actually, hit me, and if they do, by that time, my goal, financially speaking, is to have a bulletproof vest on, so that I don't die, and and my wife and kids are destitute. I've seen what they've done to to men, good men, ruin their livelihood, and very much. I mean, there are thousands of Christians who want to do that to me. And it's not just, we care about the purity and protection of Christ Church. It's, we hate Joel Webbin and we want his kids to starve. They truly do. Whether it's dragging up the past, there's been threats about like, we'll find something in your past and we'll bring this. Like, I mean, it's, the Reformed Church is perhaps the most vicious community I've ever known in my life. And so I need to learn political philosophy because I'm interested in it. And I need to learn investments because I need a bulletproof vest because people are coming for my head.
Yeah.
All right, those are my goals.
From Dreamer, this is the last one. X will hit the YouTube comments. What if the millennial reign in Revelation 20 already happened and we are in little season, hidden history and dark ages lie? It's kind of the idea that Christ rule and reign. So in Revelation, Satan is bound, and then it says Christ rules and reigns for 1,000 years. Right. And at the end of that reign, Satan is loosed, and he gathers the nations from the four corners of the earth, and they surround the camp of the saints. That's the name of that book from 1973. There's actually some good guys. I think C.J. Angle, I've even seen like espouse a type of version of that. Like Christ rule and reign has happened. It was the expansion over Europe and the West, and now we are in Satan being loosed and deceiving the world. And when it comes all down to it, there will be a small remnant left of Christians. I've heard some call it last stand post-millennialism. Right. Totally orthodox, valid view.
Yeah, it is.
I love the idea. I don't personally hold to it yet, but it is an interesting idea that what if it really was 1,000 years and the high water mark was the Middle Ages, the Scholastics, culminating the Reformation, down through the Enlightenment, and then I would say Judeo-Christianity, Zionism have been these things that have deceived the nations, gathered them together against Christianity. Totally valid view in my view.
It's perfectly orthodox. So I'm not convinced of it. I absolutely hate it. I'll be honest. I hate it. And I'll tell you why. But it is perfectly orthodox. More orthodox than dispensationalism.
Oh, yeah.
Yep.
So if you think that John MacArthur's end times views are biblical, then you should think that this is absolutely biblical. I think that there's a way of taking the best of that, because there's a good sense there. There's a way of taking the best of that, but still holding to postmillennialism. One, because it's a hopeful eschatology, and we need hope. And two, not just because of that, but most importantly, because I do believe that postmillennial eschatology is the most faithful exegetically of the text. So this is how I think you can hold both, is by being a partial preterist and applying it consistently. Not a full preterist. There will be a final physical return of Christ. There are some things that we're still waiting for. And a resurrection of the dead. Yes. Bodily resurrection of all the dead. The damned, the reprobate unto damnation, and the righteous unto life everlasting. So there are still some prophecies that we await their fulfillment. I'm thinking predominantly the last two chapters of the book of Revelation and a couple of the text. Thessalonians, there's a text. However, most of the New Testament, I believe all the New Testament in terms of its writing, the dating of its writing, was pre-AD 70, all of it, including the four Gospels. And most of the New Testament, in terms of its future-oriented prophecies, I think have been fulfilled. So preterist just means past. Partial preterist means not everything in the Bible has been fulfilled, but a lot has. And I think if you're just a consistent partial preterist, then you'll apply the partial preterist hermeneutic that gets you to postmillennialism in your eschatology. You'll also not carve out an exception for Romans chapter 11. Right. You'll apply it there too. And what I mean by that, you'll say that Paul's writing the book of Romans around 80, 50, 80, 55, and he says that the natural branches, for a time, a partial hardening. It's temporary and it's partial. So partial hardening of Israel, according to the flesh, ethnic Israel, temporarily is happening at the time that he's writing the book of Romans, but that the natural branches will eventually be grafted back in, and that when that happens, them being cut off meant the inclusion of the Gentiles. The wild olive branches are grafted into the root. The root is not Israel, the root is Christ. The natural branches, that's Israel, ethnic Israel, according to the flesh, they eventually will be grafted back in also. And when they're grafted back in, the Gentile wild branches also get to stay in, and then that will kickstart a life from the dead kind of revival. So I think I don't think we're waiting for that. I think if you're consistent with a partial preterist hermeneutic, Romans 11 has already been fulfilled. I think it happened in AD 70. I think that what Jesus said in the Matthew 24 Olivet Discourse, that not one stone of the temple will be left on another, and he said this generation, I don't think he's saying this type of generation in a metaphorical sense, but these people that I'm talking to, and 40 years later, lo and behold, 40 years is a generation. 40 years later, the people are old now, but they're still alive, and they see the desolation coming from Titus. The temple is destroyed, not one stone literally left because it was sealed with gold. They took off the gold, literally not one stone left on another. Jerusalem is sacked, and I think a bunch of people in Israel, Jews, remember the word of Jesus, recognize, oh, we killed our Messiah. We killed him. He came to his own, but they did not receive him. We rejected our Messiah. Yes, the Romans literally drove the nails in his hand. Yes, all people killed him in the sense that it's our sin that made his death necessary. Yes, the Father killed him because he was pleased to crush the Son. Yes, the Son chose to lay down his own life. No one takes it. But also, the Jews killed Jesus. They said, let his blood be on us and our children. They hated him, and they rejected him, and they killed him. And he told them before his crucifixion, this is what's going to happen before this generation passes away. Jerusalem destroyed. Because as a judgment of what? A judgment of all their disobedience, but chiefly a judgment of their greatest crime, their greatest sin, killing the Son of God. And lo and behold, that generation's still alive. They're older now, 60, 70 years old, but they're standing there. They see the desolation coming. The temple is ripped apart. There's smoke and clouds. Clouds don't signal. It's not happy cherubim clouds. That language, that prophetic language it's desolation. It's judgment language. Clouds of smoke and smog. And they see this happen before their very eyes. They remember the sermon of Jesus in Matthew chapter 24, and they say, oh crap, he was right. He wasn't a false prophet. We just hated him because we're Israel, and we did what Israel has always done, kill the prophets, because we've been a stiff-necked, rebellious people for centuries, and now God has finally had it with us, and Jesus, his prophecy is true. God is judging us. And I think that a lot of the Jews in that generation saw that as a fulfillment to one of the greatest prophecies ever given in Matthew 24 by Jesus himself, and they said, God, I'm sorry, I repent, please save me. And those Jews, not the rest of them, but those Jews who actually then believed and repented, they then listened to the rest of what Jesus said in Matthew 24, which was flee, because it's not a worldwide judgment at the end of the age. It's the end of this age, this Old Testament, Old Covenant age. It's a local judgment happening in a local city of Jerusalem. And if you physically flee fast enough, you can get away from it. And so I think the Jews that ended up repenting and believing that Jesus was the Messiah, they became Christians, and by becoming Christians, they listened to Jesus' warning, and they got out of Dodge. So spiritually, they were saved from fire, hell's fire. Physically, practically, now by trusting in Jesus, they trust in his other words, flee, run away, and they escaped the physical, temporal fire of Jerusalem being destroyed. And then those Christians moved and dispersed to other places, and now that the old covenant was done, and they're Christians, they believe in Jesus, they intermarried over the centuries. They raise their children to be Christians, and their descendants, I think now, are predominantly Christian people spread out all over the earth. A lot of them probably Christian Palestinians. The ones who rejected, continued to reject Jesus and did not come to faith, those Jews who saw the fulfillment of what Jesus said in Matthew 24, everything's being destroyed, and still said, we hate him, we're being destroyed, still really glad we killed that guy. Well, I think that they died off, and their bloodline didn't continue. They were all destroyed in Jerusalem. And then, of course, you have the modern state of Israel today. It is not the Christian Jews who repented, and not the ones who died off and their bloodline ends. So who are they? Well, imposters. That's who they are. That's my opinion. I could be wrong, but that's what I think. That said, here's the point. Romans 11, partial preterist, it's past. It's actually been fulfilled. It was in the future at the time of Paul's writing, but it's in our past. Paul's saying that when the natural branches are grafted back in, there'll be a life from the dead kind of revival. And I think that happened. In AD 70, Paul writes the book in AD 55, and then a bunch of the Jews, some perish and still reject Christ. But I think a bunch of them in the destruction of Jerusalem in AD 70 saw that as a fulfillment to Christ's prophecy that convinced them that Christ really was the Messiah. They repented of their sins, trusted in Jesus, got out of Dodge, aka the natural branches, Israel according to the flesh, is grafted into the true root of Israel, who is Christ. They become Christians. And then the life from the dead, it's not something we're waiting for. That's called Christendom. 1,500 years of Christendom is the life from the dead. And the reason that we're starting to now lose some of that ground is because, I think, for many reasons, but one, I'm not even saying it's the chief reason or the source of all the, but one reason I think we're losing it is because we are backtracking on the very thing that kickstarted that life from the dead in the first place. And what was the natural branches being grafted back in? What does that mean? That's poetic language, but in real terms, what does that mean? It means Israel accepting Christ and recognizing that the rejection of Christ is a damnable offense. And what are we now doing? What is the church? I'm not just talking about the modern state of Israel. What is the Christian church doing? Essentially what we've been doing for 150 years since Schofield and Darby, and especially the last 80 years, and the Zionist project and all these, what we've been doing is we basically been doing the opposite of what gave us that life from the dead, 1,500 years of revival and blessing in Christendom, which is the natural branches rejecting their God-hating ways and being grafted into the root, into Christ. We've been doing the opposite. We've been saying, there's Christianity, and that's technically best. To love Jesus, accept Jesus, trust Jesus, put faith in Jesus. But there's also Christianity adjacent, Christian adjacent. And, like God has the natural born son, and the natural born son hates dad, absolutely hates him, spits on his face, all this. But dad really, really loves the natural born son. And we're just the stepchildren, the Gentile Christians. And the best way that we can get dad to love us is just do favors and be kind to the kid that dad loves the most, which is the natural born biological child, which is Israel. It's the natural branches being grafted in was Israel forsaking their rejection of Christ and coming into him. And what we've been doing for the last 150 years is basically saying it's okay. It's okay to reject Christ. If there's an entire nation established on the rejection of Christ, Judaism, the rejection of Christ, we'll give them billions of dollars. We'll support them. That's great. And lo and behold, Christendom has come to a screeching halt. Isn't that funny? So my point is, I think both are true. So I think post-millennialism, we've been getting the life from the dead, and we can get right back on. We've been derailed. I think we can get right back on track, and Christendom keeps going until Jesus stops tarrying, until he returns. And maybe that's another 100 years, and maybe that's another 10,000 years. I don't know. But I think that the partial preterist thing that gets you the post-millennial hopeful eschatology also gets you a better view on Israel and completely destroys dispensationalism. And it's the lack of that has gotten us a very Zionist kind of view. And I think that's precisely what has halted Christendom, at least one of the reasons. Michael?
To me, it's the Great Commission, and Jesus says, go disciple the nations. And so to say that the millennial reign of Christ peaked or ended at 1,000, to me implies that all the rest of the nations, that most of them at that time had not had a gospel witness, period.
Right.
Not just the nation had been converted, but the gospel was present. Most of the nations of the world by that point had not received a gospel witness.
Right.
And so to me, I don't know how Christ's actual reign, where he commissions the church to disciple all the nations, which is represented in Romans or in Revelation 7 with all the nations gathered around the throne. To me, I don't know. It seems like his reign was incomplete. If it's by 1,000, it leaves a lot of the nations of the world out.
That's a great point. Yeah, because the nations have not been thoroughly proselytized.
And not even all
We've
the
had
nations
a life from
of
the
that
dead
time were reached.
We've had a life from the dead, 1,500 years Christendom kind of moment.
Yeah.
But the leaven has not gone through the whole batch of dough.
Right.
The mustard tree, the mustard seed has not. The tree is, you can see
It's big, yeah.
But I think now we've had some pruning. It shrunk a little bit. So it grew for 1,500 years, or 1,200 years, shrunk for the last 300 years. The Enlightenment's a big part of that. A lot of different things. Dispensationalism, Zionism, all of it. It shrunk some. The tree's still there, but it never covered the full earth.
Right.
Even at its peak, there's still more to go.
Yep. All right. We'll go ahead and do the first super chat. So Ben Huffstedler, what are your thoughts on not celebrating Christmas due to the convictions of Paul's food sacrifice, proper grounds, or I'm assuming he's saying or not?
You do it, Wes.
I was reading Romans the other day, and Paul really does say there's days that some celebrate and other don't, and let each be convinced.
Right.
You're not going to celebrate Christmas. Be convinced. Don't do it half-heartedly. Do it unto the Lord.
Right.
And if you are going to, Paul really does say, there's going to be days, and some are you going to hold them high, and some are you going to hold them low. Some are you going to say, it's the Lord's day only, 52 days a year, that's it. Some are you going to have Christmas. You're going to have Easter and Pentecost and all of that.
In addition to the Sabbath.
In addition to the Sabbath. And be fully convinced and do it unto the Lord.
Yep. Amen. Love it. Yep. You got to be Sabbatarian. I think that's the confessional and the bibiblical.
The Lord's Day.
Yep. So the Lord's Day. You got to be a Lord's Day guy, and you celebrate that 52 times a year, once a week. And then if you say that's it, that's our holy day, holy day, the only Christian holy day, I think that's perfectly fine.
Yeah, it's fine.
And if you say we're doing that, nothing less than that, and if Christmas falls on a Sunday, we're going to church.
Right.
Which
Right.
we did 4 years ago.
Which we did 4 years ago.
And it was awesome.
Exactly. So we're doing that. But in addition to that, not at the expense of that, but in addition to that, we have Christmas and we have Thanksgiving. I think that's perfectly fine. What I would say strategically wise to some of my friends, because I've got Covenanter, Puritan type friends, and I've got not so much, guys on the other side of the aisle. I think what Wes just said in quoting what Paul says in Romans is that's the command for Christians is don't look down on the other. So if you're a Grinch, a Puritan Grinch, that's great. But just kind of privately Grinch to yourself.
Yep.
And don't do what Jerome Powell did today and ruin Christmas for the entire
everybody.
World. Okay.
I'm going to be able to get through these last three. So Glorious and Free Ministries, very generous super chat. Thank you so much. He says, Merry Christmas from your based Canadian ally. We don't have many of them. Reformed Reconquistador. We pray you have a God-glorifying new year, rebuilding Christendom in 2025. He's also published a book, Adam Mello, I'm blanking out right now, but I bought it.
Yes.
Oh,
the Gargoyle?
Yes.
Oh,
we have it.
I read
we
it.
love it.
I
So
like
good.
it.
I'm going to pull the name of it up now.
Find a link real quick. Let's give him a
I'll
shout
read the
out.
next one while you're looking for it.
Okay, go ahead, Mike.
Super chat from $20
Wow,
from Josh
thanks.
Rocha. A historical book author recommendation, specifically World War II, Civil War Crusades. You got the name of that?
I'm going to have to read a bunch of books because I'm going to read Civil War ones as well. The book by Adam is The Gargoyle Stone, Kings and Cathedrals, book 1. So go ahead, find that on Amazon. Great read. My kids love
Say
it.
one more time.
The Gargoyle Stone. Gargoyle like
The
a stone
Gargoyle
statue.
Stone.
Kings and Cathedral, book 1. Great book.
It's on the Reformation.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's really good.
Yep. Well illustrated.
Okay, so this was Josh Rocha, and he's asking recommendations for history,
Yes.
for predominantly for World War II, Civil War.
I just got
and
the
Crusades.
regular ones, the God's Battalions.
Yeah, so Crusades would be God's Battalions, Defenders of the West, Sword, and Scimitar. And that's 3 different books. 2 of them are by one author, the author being Raymond Ibrahim, and then God's Battalions. So Sword and Scimitar and Defenders of the West, Raymond Ibrahim. God's Battalions is Rodney Stark. Rodney Stark. Read all 3 of those this year. Fantastic books. In addition to that, it's not really what you asked for, but R.R. Reno, Return of the Strong Gods, is a must-read. Those are some of the most shaping books for me this year. And then World War II, Pat Buchanan, The Unnecessary War. What's the full name?
Hitler, Churchill, and the Unnecessary War.
Hitler, Churchill, and the Unnecessary War. That's the only one that I've read.
And I think Death of the West almost is a sequel to that, right? Like if you read the one about World War II first, and then you go into Death of the West, it's kind of like the fallout of everything that happened because
you should
World War
read
II.
to Alexander Solzhenitsyn, his Gulag Archipelago, to understand the real antithesis, which was communism, Communist Revolution, 1917. I'm going to give some Civil War recommendations. Shelby Foote, The Civil War, a Narrative 3-volume box set. So it's 3 volumes. It's a narrative history of the Civil War. Highly recommended. I have Dabney's biography of Stonewall Jackson. That's very good as well. And then Michael and Jeff Shahara, they wrote the books Killer Angels. It's somewhat fictional. It's more novelist. On Gettysburg. And then Jeff wrote Gods and Generals and The Last Full Measure, which are excellent Civil War books as well.
Awesome. Thanks, Wes.
All right.
Okay. Oh, we got another super chat. Whoa, a $500 super chat. All right. You know how many movies that is?
We're funded through.
I said, I can't help myself. But like literally right before we recorded, we were talking about like our schedule for next year. And we're like, okay, you know what? We don't get a lot of super chats. And maybe that'll change. Praise God. Thank you guys. But we're like, that's not the bread and butter. The super chats are few and far between. That should go into a movie fund where once a week we go watch a movie for cultural research purposes, of course. And if it's a good super chat week, then in addition to the movie, maybe you can get some loaded fries, you know, at Flick's Brew House or something like that. This is a $500 super chat. That is...
and that will actually go to good use.
So many movies.
That will not go to movies.
Take it back.
We take it back. So this is, but they deserve a shout out, the name. So this is Aaron Perryman. Aaron Perryman. First, Aaron, I hope you had your husband's permission to spend $500.
She says that.
Okay, here it goes. Ari Perryman says, Merry Christmas, brothers. My husband, God bless her, she knows. My husband told me to do this super chat to challenge others to give big this last live stream of the year. God bless you. We love your ministry. Wow.
Thank you.
I could almost tear up, except I'm not gay. If I was, I would cry on camera right now. I will not do it, but seriously, I'm blown away. That is incredibly generous, so kind. Aaron Perryman, tell your husband, if you want to add in the comment his name, if he wants a shout out, but tell Mr. Perryman, we are so incredibly grateful, and we are not Puritan Covenanters. Love the Puritans. In other words, we can say Merry Christmas. Thank you very much, and Merry Christmas. We'll see if that starts a chain reaction with generosity. Oh, another one just landed.
We skipped Connor Suba.
Yep.
So,
wow, you guys, man. End of the year, Christmas. Jerome Powell was not generous this Christmas, but you guys are. Okay, go ahead. Pick it up, Wes.
All right. Connor Suba, $20. I really enjoy the podcast. Keep up the good work. Thanks so much, Connor. Really appreciate that.
Thank
Very
you, Connor.
kind of you.
Yep.
This is Ben.
Ben, who had the first question.
Yep.
This looks like a comment. Very generous. Super chat, $50. Ben said, imagine Emo Joe wailing on the piccolo to enter Sandman while under a highway overpass and it's raining. Joel, how can we make that happen?
Well, we could make it happen. Unlike most people, I actually know what a piccolo is.
Yeah.
I was in, and this probably will surprise no one because they're like, we've always hated you. We knew you were a loser. Now you're confirming it. I was in band, both concert and marching and jazz band. Mm-hmm. All three. Ooh. As many bands as you could possibly be in for 7 years. I know. I played bass guitar in jazz band, so it was almost cool. Not really, but almost.
It's cool.
Yeah. I played,
cool.
I went anywhere, but never
important.
did soprano sax, but I did from alto to tenor to baritone, saxophone. I was best on tenor, partly because there's a little less competition. Alto, there's a ton. So anyways, the point is this. Obviously, a reeded woodwind instrument is very different than a flute or a piccolo. Yeah. But I messed around. I dabble, as Ron Burgundy would say, with the flute. You know, I dabble.
Yeah.
I've dabbled. And so, long story short, for the right super chat, we can make that happen. Merry Christmas. All right. Let's keep going.
Reformed student, question. Is communion that doesn't use real wine communion? Jesus said, do this in remembrance of me. We were not doing this that happened. Is grape juice for communion a sin? Yes,
it is. But they should do wine. It's the regular principle of worship.
Is it sin or is it real communion?
It is real communion.
Because Wes ended the question with, is it sin? And you said, yes.
Oh, yes. I'm sorry. I was thinking the first half of the question, is it real communion? Yes. It's real. I
don't actually think it is.
I don't want to be, okay, we'll hear you out. I don't want to be that big of a stickler. But no, you should do wine. I think Jesus prescribes wine, and I'd love to hear show the other side, but I want you to make, I love your argument for, aside from just the fact that Jesus says it, why wine is important. Go.
Yeah. Well, I mean, for one, we're not at liberty to substitute in elements that God has given to us. We're not free to add a third sacrament. You would of course agree with that. So,
like, what if we baptize in a tub of blood?
Yes, exactly.
Or orange juice.
Yep, exactly.
It's supposed to be water.
What if we did Skittles and what was George
Skittles
Floyd's
and Gatorade?
Gatorade for communion.
But that literally happened.
That
happened during Trayvon
Martin.
After
George Floyd or Trayvon Martin.
It was Trayvon Martin. That was his last supper before the incident with George Zimmerman.
Yep.
So common L.
We use the word churches loosely.
That happened after George Floyd, or
no,
before?
after Trayvon Martin.
This was Trayvon Martin in like 2016.
Yeah.
Oh yeah,
And there's
It
churches
was a
that
similar
said
thing.
And I saw during COVID churches that said like, "What do you got? Is it crackers and Pepsi?"
Right.
And that stuff is you're not
right.
obviously espousing that, but that is blasphemous. So the Lord has set the menu, and one of the powers of wine, because all of these things have symbolism. Symbols are what in many ways run the world. Well, what does wine carry with it? It carries with it, for one, a burn and a bitterness.
Yep.
But it also has a warming and intoxicating effect. Others have commented that this shows the dual nature, for one, of the severity of God's wrath. We see this language in the prophets of, I'm going to pour out the wine of my wrath. It's burn, it's vigor, it's judgment. So it symbolizes the wrath and the severity and the seriousness of communion, of the Lord's Supper. But then it's intoxicating and it's warm. It's often associated with weddings, which reminds us of his love. So when you have wine, what it's carrying with it is the symbolism of the seriousness of Christ's blood shed for us, but it's also showing his love, that he is as the bridegroom, as the Song of Songs say.
It bites like wrath,
bites and warms.
the cup of wrath that was poured out on Christ, and so, but there's also warmth and intimacy, and
So all that being said, I think any substitution to that is in substance just ultimately not the Lord's Supper. I also don't think it's necessary. James B. Jordan makes this argument in his book, From Bread to Wine. So he would argue you have to have the bread, because if you literally don't have bread and you're not serving it, everyone there is starving. But wine is more kingly in its symbolism. And for much of church history, the laity did only take the bread.
Yeah, bread sustains, bread of life, but wine is nobility. It's yeah.
So I would argue if you are taking grape juice, it would be a sin, and it would be you be taking half of the supper.
I
think that's what the Bible teaches.
That's cute, but
I hear you. You're wrong.
I hear you wrong. No, that was good. That was well spoken, compelling. I disagree, but I could be wrong. This is what I would say. Help me. So first, I'll ask a question before I make a statement. I'm pretty sure the exact words though is fruit of the vine, and there are plenty of places in Scripture that say wine, but in the case of the supper, I'm pretty sure it says fruit of the vine. And so the argument that I would make, pushing back to play the devil's advocate, to be fair, is I would say Welch's grape juice, you shouldn't do it. But that is grapes. It is the fruit of the vine, and it's been processed and distilled, and so it's different. But it is the fruit of the vine that have simply undergone different and more processes than wine, which is it's still the same vine. Same fruit. Wine goes through one set of processes, and then grape juice goes through another set of processes. But it is still the same fruit of the same vine. Whereas if you did water, it's not fruit of the vine. If you did whatever, you get the point. If you did Kool-Aid. And so that would be my thought. And then the only other thing I thought, like, I'm just thinking ahead of what common questions that I get, as a pastor all the time about the Lord's Supper. Some guys will say, well, you're hard on the guys who do grape juice, and you're saying it has to be wine, but I bet, are you doing unleavened bread? Yeah. Or does your bread have leaven?
Right.
Here would be my point with that. I would say unleavened bread, it doesn't say that it had to be unleavened bread. Unleavened bread was belonging to the Passover. So it was unleavened bread in the case of Jesus and the disciples, but that's because he was instituting a new sacrament, the Lord's Supper, but also observing the old. In the case of Passover, in Passover, it was prescribed that it's unleavened because of the context. It was historical, and in that moment of history, Israel's history, the context was, you guys are about to get up and book it. You're about to move. You're about to be on the run, and you're about to be moving. You're about to go on a journey. It's this quick rush kind of. It's not a banquet and a feast that you have to clean up afterwards. And no, it's a quick meal.
Yep.
It's like when you get fast food, which if you can help it, don't. But you get fast food because you're on a road trip, right? It's a quick meal before you're on the go, and so unleavened bread that hasn't been, no yeast, hasn't risen. Well, here's the deal: the Lord's Supper, Jesus is doing both when he's having the Last Supper with his disciples, his apostles. He's observing the Passover before his crucifixion in fulfillment of prophecy, and because it's part of the Jewish calendar, and he keeps the law under the Old Covenant. The Old Covenant now is over; it's wrapped up like a garment; it's completely done. Now it's just the Lord's Supper. The Lord's Supper is bread. It's only the Passover that signifies unleavened. And so I would argue, and many other Puritans and Reformers have argued as well, that in the Lord's Supper we still use bread, just as the Passover was bread. But the difference is that now it's leavened bread because the yeast, it's the leaven of the gospel that and our risen Lord that causes the bread to rise. And we're not on the run from Egypt, but now we're the head and not the tail because of Christ, and we're actually pushing. It's the darkness, kingdom of darkness, that's on the run. Egypt is now fleeing us. I think it preaches. I like things that preach. I think it preaches. I think it's good.
There's a different word. There's common bread, and that's the word in the New Testament when it says they broke bread, and it's just the simple word for bread. So it doesn't specify unleavened. It does say fruit of the vine.
Fruit of the vine. So that's so I would just say that grape juice is fruit of the vine, but it has undergone more processes.
Sure. And I would say the alcohol, like if you had alcohol removed wine, I don't think that would actually count. Because if you start getting like, well, the bread, what about gluten? So my wife is actually gluten-free, so she can't, we use a gluten-free loaf. Now it's leavened and it's bread. It contained, it's bread. It's been one loaf that's been torn apart, distributed to the people. But the second we start getting cute and say like, well, without the leaven, well, that's a cracker. And we just picked on crackers. And if we take wine and we say like, well, fruit of the vine, it's actually just purple drink that's 2%. Like, what if it's 50%, like grape juice, and then we cut it with water? Like, is that still? I think we have to, at least for me, what I would say, you take the stand on, it's wine with alcohol, it's leavened bread. All right. Gluten not constituent to it. If those are the elements, then strictly speaking, now we take them in faith. And so in faith, God honors that you didn't have water for immersion. You sprinkled even as Baptist. That's in extraordinary circumstances, but the ordinary means of grace, ordinarily, I would argue, would have to be wine with alcohol and then leavened bread.
Yeah, somebody asked, what about the kids? We're family integrated. The kids are there every single Lord's Day. And those kids who are baptized, so baptism is the initiating oath sign, is how the one joins the many. And then the Lord's Supper is the renewing oath sign, the renewal covenant ceremony that happens weekly, not just once a quarter. And that's how, baptism, initiating oath sign, the one joins the many. And then the Lord's Supper is the renewal oath sign, where the many are joined into one. One joins the many. Baptism, the many are joined into one. The Lord's Supper, and so all baptized believers take the Lord's Supper in our church, and that includes children. Yep. We are Credo Baptist, but we baptize. Each child is different. Yep. But like my children, 2 of my children are baptized. 1 is 7, 1 is 5. Our third oldest is 4. And she will probably be baptized very soon. Mm-hmm. And by the time, we now have 5 kids, we might have more, by the time we get down to my last child, I'll probably be a Paedo Baptist.
I'm going to tell one
story.
Just
practically speaking.
I'm going to tell one story about one of my sons. Because my mother, I love her, good, godly Christian woman, but definitely of the, I'm not drinking anything, including communion wine. Yeah, teetotaler. And so she said, well, how can you have your kids drink wine at communion? And my youngest son, he's 12, he said to her, Grandma, I hate the taste of wine at church. I hate it. Yeah. And every time we do communion, Pastor Webben says, this is to remind you of the wrath and the discomfort that Jesus suffered for you. He goes, I know the wrath that Jesus suffered. And that was the end of the discussion.
Like cheap $2 Chuck wine. That's what that's the wrath of God. Yeah. No, that's funny. But all that being said, like my kids, my 2 oldest, 7 and 5, they're drinking wine, and they like it. But part of that is because in being Sabbatarian, ever since they were like 2-3 years old, we would do like our family a Saturday evening Sabbath dinner, leading into the Lord's Day, preparing our hearts and minds and doing family worship. And we would give them a very responsible, very small amount. Hear me out, like thimble size, but a small little. We got basically shot glasses, but they don't look like shot. They look fancier. And so our kids, not the baby, but our kids would all get a thimble amount of wine, because mom and dad would have a glass of wine on Saturday evenings. And so just the taste doesn't bother my kids. They think
another reason to live in Texas.
Your son likes
the taste of wine and beer too.
In Texas, you're allowed to do that.
Chad.
Yeah, in Texas you can do that.
Not allowed to do that. Never
and in other places, you're also allowed to do it because you're the father.
Well,
you just don't tell the state.
I agree. 100%.
I know.
Yes.
Yeah.
One more question, then last commercial break.
Yeah, and then we'll come back and we'll do more questions, because we want to try to get as many questions as possible. I know it's getting late, but
maybe we'll do like 1 word or 1 sentence answers, so we can try it best. If you left your comment, you've been listening the whole time.
I'll do my best.
We'll get to it.
Right.
Okay. So LM asks, what is your take on 2 Thessalonians 2, the man, so this would be the man of lawlessness, the man of sin, who, quote, sits in the seat of the temple of God and performs false miracles? How do you interpret this passage if Jews are not intended to rebuild the temple? I think the idea of being preterist, as you said, you're a preterist and you view 2 Thessalonians 2, the man of sin and lawlessness, as an early first century Nero figure. Right. How is this prophecy of him sitting? I'm going to read it out.
So I don't. I think the Nero figure, I think that's your
the beast.
The beast.
Okay.
Nero, I think 666. That number tallied up and like using the Roman numeral system literally spells out Nero, or his full title, which is a little bit longer, and I forget. R.C. Sproul has a great video on it. So I think Nero was the beast. The man of lawlessness, I don't want to conflate with the beast. I think it's a different person. I think the man of lawlessness was the Jewish high priest.
Okay.
It's a Jew.
Yeah, I've heard that too. Yeah.
The man of lawless. I think Jesus is the point. Paul's saying this. It's Paul's point in Thessalonians, but I think Jesus, elsewhere says similar things. I think both Jesus and his apostles are making a pointed point. The point being, the most lawless people you can find are the Jews. And the man, the chief of all lawlessness is the high priest.
It's a great irony.
It's a great irony. Yep.
I don't have anything more profound to add to that.
Yep.
So anyway, point being, it does not require a second temple or a third temple being built.
Yes.
That would have been at the time.
Whether the high priest or Nero.
Already been fulfilled.
Yep.
It's done.
And less clear passages.
There is a third temple.
Yes.
Amen.
But it's living stones, Christians, being built together as a holy temple of the Lord. Go ahead.
And less clear passages like 2 Thessalonians, even 1 Thessalonians. There's some tough language to parse out. Don't make those the load-bearing weight compared to other clearer passages when Jesus speaks of his return, Revelation, and all of that.
All
right, last commercial, and then we're going to come back and honor your questions. Now is the time to leverage the MAGA economy. With Private Family Banking System, you can leverage savings in government-qualified plans, such as IRAs, Roths, 401ks, and 403bs. Remember, your 401k type savings are a future target for higher income taxes. Properly implementing private family banking methods will enormously impact your short-term cash use and success in building long-term multi-generational tax-free wealth. If you have consumer debt, no problem. They can help accelerate the payoff. If you have a small business, this gets even better. You can invest in the stock market or buy gold or Bitcoin while simultaneously making money on your savings. Does this sound too good to be true? Well, come and join a community of business owners, entrepreneurs, and investors who will show you how to multiply your money while enjoying added income tax protection and building legacy wealth. Join this parallel economy group today. Send an email today to banking@privatefamilybanking.com. Again, that's banking@privatefamilybanking.com, and one of our partners will contact you. Also, don't forget to click the link in the show notes below and download a copy of their free ebook, How to Build Multi-Generational Wealth Outside of Wall Street and Avoid the Coming Banking Meltdown.
America is a country that was founded for the purpose of allowing Christians to do their duty before God and not to have their consciences ruled by the doctrines and commandments of men. Reece Fund exists in order to see the 10 Commandments properly applied, not just as a plaque on the wall, but to actually be used in business as though they're commandments from God that we're supposed to obey. Our goal is to find businesses and to buy them and to build them up. We want to find manufacturing businesses and use them to make sure that we can maintain our capacity to do things here. Reece Fund, Christian capital, boldly deployed.
Hey, real quick, we should mention these guys. Axe Head, friends of Right Response. We appreciate them. Good Christian guys, and they do leather and woodwork, wood carving. I actually have, look at this, stir sticks.
Yep.
Pretty amazing. There's no way you can't see that. I'll zoom in. Nate's gonna zoom in. Here comes. He was over here just lollygagging. Here we go. Pretty sweet.
Yep.
Ladies, stocking stuffers.
Yeah.
This is going to fit perfectly in your husband's stocking.
That's right.
He's not going to turn it down.
He will not. Yep. All right, Accent, thank you guys for, they just gave it to us as a Christmas gift. Very kind. Okay, questions.
All right, next one. We've got this from Reformed Student. In Luke 22:3, was Judas tempted to betray Jesus, or was he demonically possessed by Satan? I would say this
In
might
what
be the
text?
case. 22:3.
22:3.
I'll pull it up. This may be the
it
case of a false dichotomy.
Right. Luke 22.
Do you have it, Wes?
Yep. So Jesus sent Peter and John saying, "Go and make preparations for us to eat Passover." That's not right. Luke 22. I know the Passover says,
Yeah.
and Satan entered him.
Yeah.
Right, I know that.
Yeah.
I don't think we ever see in Scripture a case of demonic or even satanic possession where it's against the individual's will.
Right.
First, there's rebellion and wickedness that's
Yep.
fostered in the heart long term, and then finding that culminates in a type of possession. And
Yeah.
well, wait, I never wanted to go this far. Like, well,
William Perkins, the Puritan, talks about how this sort of agreement is a pact that must be made with the devil. And even if it's unwitting in a sense, like you don't know the full extent of what you're getting into,
Right.
it is willing, and there's some knowledge of what you're getting
Yeah, the
into.
devil
from the
tricks you,
beginning.
and there's
Yep.
more. He
Yep.
takes, he like, what's the old adage? Like, he'll take you further than you want to go.
take you farther you wanna go.
Keep,
Right.
keep you longer than
Cost
you
you
want
more
to
than
stay.
you wanna pay.
Cost
Yep.
you more than you want to pay. Yeah.
Yep.
And that's true. That's a good saying. But he's evil because God's word tells you he's evil, and volition is required. And so I think of you can make an argument from like the greater to the lesser. So the man who was possessed and slept among the tombs, and they would bind him, and he would be able to break the binds, had superhuman strength, and he was possessed by not one but several demons. When Jesus asked, "What is your name?" they say, "Legion, for we are many." So that guy, possessed by a multitude of demons, legion, it says he was out of his right mind, like he was out of his mind. So he's insane. He's sleeping with dead people.
Right.
And he has superhuman strength.
Right.
And he's naked, running around naked and killing people, murderous. Here's the thing. This is implicit from the text, but it's there. Jesus doesn't go and find him in a tomb. Jesus lands in that region from his ship. I believe he was sailing.
Yep.
And it's like pretty much the text makes it sound like as soon as he gets out,
The
man is a far way off, sees him, and he comes to Jesus. And I don't think the demons are bringing the man to Jesus. I think the man, even not just whatever volition he gave to initially be possessed, but even after possession, strong possession, there's still the man. The man is still there.
Yep.
He's warped. He's corrupted. But the will is still there. The volition is still there, even post possession, enough to where I would imagine against a whole legion of demons' will, he drags himself to Jesus. The demons likely was no,
away.
if anything, trying to pull him back. So yeah.
I like that.
All right, we've got three that are related, two from the same account, and then one from third one, but they're somewhat related. So I'm going to read all three of them. Are you guys aware? This is from BJ Wins Again. Are you guys aware?
BJJ, Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu.
BJJ Wins Again.
BJs.
Yes. As I only just became, that the Talmud describes how all the standard miracles demonstrating God's acceptance of sacrifices ceased for the 40 years preceding 70 AD, continued in Trakat Yoma 39b. What really blew my mind was that they have, for 2,000 years, been like 40 years before the temple was destroyed. Nothing to see here move along. Related to that, Peter Sawyer says, why is the issue of Talmudic Judaism relevant to Reformed believers? And Peter, I'm going to be the one to say it. I wish this whole year was not dominated by Talmudic Judaism. I don't think it's going to go away because it's wrapped up in the post-war consensus, right? So I think it's going to be something that we're talking about.
About 30% of these questions are closely related to Jews and Israel and Judaism.
So I don't think it's going to go away. I think it's worth
Israel, so hot right now. That Hansel, he's so hot right now.
stock in Israel.
The only thing to BJJ, I did not know that, and that
I
is
didn't know that
fascinating.
either. Yeah,
I'll
that's
have to research
interesting.
it more.
Yep.
Yeah, it's not going away. And it's, as you guys know, it's not the only issue. It's a big one. But the larger macro theme, even bigger than Israel, is just in general. You're looking at 80 years, give or take, of serious suppression of speech, and now we're looking at. Think of it like this. I think there's a lot of parallels. I think it's really cool in the providence of God to speculate within reason of what the Lord might be doing in His sovereign will. But 500 years ago, it's pretty much 500 years. 2017 was the 500-year mark from the Reformation.
Yep.
Well, God, in the first Reformation with Luther, who had some strong things to say about the Jews, God timed up theological reformation of the church with technological innovation
and political controversy
in the world and political controversy. Exactly. All three of those things. So it's like political upheaval and turnover, and technological innovation, the Gutenberg printing press, particularly a technological innovation, not just for machines or, for irrigation or, but particularly to do with information, the dissemination of information, the Gutenberg printing press. So technological innovation, political upheaval, and theological reformation, all at the same time. And I see those three components again today. So Gutenberg printing press, internet, social media, and more particularly, so internet, macro, social media being a little bit more specific, and then to get really narrow and specific, Elon buying Twitter.
X.
And so now X. And so the point is, you can watch even on TikTok, which is controlled and monitored, surveilled by China. It's flooded with Hitler speeches, translated through AI and different things, and into English or whatever language you speak. And so that's like, it's like, so people are like, it's because Reformed pastors are anti-Semitic, and they're, the head of the snake, this terrible anti-Semitism in the rise, and they're promulgating these things, and their church members, no. Speech has been suppressed for 80 years, and all of a sudden the dam has broken. There's a flood of a bunch of things that you weren't allowed to see. And some of these things you weren't allowed to see, like G.K. Chesterton would say, before taking a fence down, you should be able to explain the reason why it was put up in the first place. And then it may be a fence. After knowing the reason might be bad, and the fence really might need to come down. But it'd be good to know who put up the fence and why did they do it. Well, here's the deal. The fence is down. The dam is broken. There's a flood of all these things that you couldn't really find before or know before, rushing in like a flood. Some of those things were suppressed for a reason. Some of them really are just unhinged, false, historically false, morally reprehensible. That's true. And some of them were suppressed, not for good reasons, but for nefarious reasons.
Right.
Some of them are true things that were suppressed.
Yeah.
And so, in my opinion, pastorally, the solution, much easier said than done, but the solution is not to try to rebuild the dam or even put back up the fence. The solution is to work hard at gaining discernment and then leading others, particularly young men, in gaining discernment so that they can discern between the Anon account. I know it's an on, but I'm going to say Anon. So help me God. Here I am.
Future apology video from Joel Webben incoming.
Come what may. I'm saying Anon. I love it. I love it. Anon. So the Anon account on X, that their handle is at I hate Jews and I hope they all die, 777. Like who's saying, here's a absolutely historically valid piece of information, blah, blah, like, probably, probably want to take that one with a grain of salt. It's probably not going to be helpful, probably not morally pleasing to the Lord or historically accurate. Like some people won't like, I'm going to say this. I'm going to say it. I need to say it. Europa, 12-part documentary series. I've dabbled. I've dabbled, and
I've watched some of it
I had people, recommend it to me. People who are Christians who love the Lord. They're not bad people. They don't hate Jews or think they need to be rounded up or anything like that. But they're like, but this is a problem. Post-war consensus is terrible. Talmudic Judaism is terrible. The modern state of Israel is not each and every individual, but our relationship with them and our government and politically, it's terrible. And all those things I agree with. And they said, this is a really good series and really good history, and you should check it out. And I checked it out and then looked at other writings and compared it to other things and talked to other guys who are smarter than me and better read than me. And my final consensus is that I don't think it's a sin to watch that series, but I don't think it's particularly helpful. If you're going to watch it, I think you need to watch it with somebody who's better read than you and also maybe more godly and mature than you. who can offer some pushback and help you with discernment, because I don't think that it's historically that accurate. I really don't. So my point is, there is a flood right now, and there's a bunch of things that come out. It's like, this is the truth, and some of it's not. But then there's other things that come out that have been suppressed, where I'm like, as I've corresponded with other things and talked to people and read this I actually think is true. This really was a psyop, and for 80 years, and this thing actually is true, and it makes a huge difference, and people should know this. And so every you are going to see mark my words, for the next, it's not going away. And the guys are like, well, let's just not deal with it. Then I don't know what to tell you. If you're not willing to deal with it, then you are going to be offering a disservice to your parishioners if you're a pastor, because they're going to be reading these things, thinking about these things. If they're not, they're going to have family members and friends and coworkers. Like, it's not going away. Tucker Carlson just finished his 3rd interview on the subject in the last 3 months.
Yeah.
Tucker Carlson, which is fairly normie. I like Tucker. I'm not knocking him, but like it's not Stu Peters or Nick Fuentes. It's Tucker Carlson. Candace Owens is a little bit. She was
less
normie.
No. She just won Anti-Semitic of the Year.
Yes, congratulations.
Another
well
DEI win. Our boys are in the trenches.
Right. but exactly. But my point is, like, Candace Owens, I would say, is a little less normie than Tucker Carlson. Right. But she's still not as unhinged as others, as much as people try to make her sound as though she is. And even if she was, we're talking about a massive platform. But that's my big point, the toothpaste is not going back in the tube. Everyone is going to be thinking about this, and they're going to be flooded with information. And so G.K. Chesterton is right. If a fence is put up, somebody put it up for a reason. Now, the fact that it was put up for a reason doesn't mean the reason is right or just or the reason is still relevant, applicable. Exactly. So, but here's the point: the fence was torn down, for better or for worse. I think macro for better. Micro, though, like some things, because the fence is down, are going to rush back in, and some of them will be unhelpful. Some of them will be downright sinful, and you're going to need discernment. But yes, this is going to continue to be a thing. I think it needs to be a thing, because I think there really are some big lies that need to be expelled and revealed. And because it's going to continue to be a relevant thing, not just for Christians, but every single American, and really the whole world, but especially in America, because America has had such a tight relationship with Israel. This is from Tucker Carlson to Candace Owens to Thomas Massey to this is going to continue to be a conversation. And as long as it is a massive conversation, which it is, and I perceive years, then Right Response Ministries is going to try to help people. We're going to talk about it too.
We're going to talk about it too.
Yeah, so from a Reformed biblical perspective, we are going to talk about it also, and try to help Christians navigate through it and say, Talmudic Judaism really is bad. It is uniquely pernicious. Well, all false religions are pernicious. And this one I'm saying is uniquely.
Yep.
So it really is uniquely pernicious. Our relationship with the Israeli government really is a problem. The Nuremberg trials, performed by the communists and Bolsheviks and Jews, not every trial, but some of them, really is suspect. To say, are these unbiased findings? Is this objective? So there really are things to talk about. There really, really are. And some of the things, this dam that's been broken, some of the things that are now rushing back in are things that are true. And some of them are vile. But Christians need to talk about it, wade through it, figure it out. And we are hoping as a ministry to help with that.
Yep.
So,
okay.
All right.
Next question's on
Can
that
you
topic.
go down? It's, and actually, no, not so far, Nate. I think actually, Wes, you and I have talked about, we want to do some episodes on this topic. So we might not get into this question a whole time.
Yes.
But what's your thoughts on the Weimar Republic? Do you see any similarities between the Weimar Republic and the U.S. today?
I don't think, in my understanding of, we're as far. So the Weimar Republic is this period post World War II. So you have after the Treaty of Versailles.
Post World War I.
Sorry, World War I.
Yep.
You have the Treaty of Versailles. It sacks Germany with all these sanctions and costs and pensions, and it declined entirely as a nation. So perversion, a lot of it Jewish perversion and communist perversion, came rushing in, specifically along sexual perversion.
I mean, they had inflation that was incredible.
Yep. So they had economic inflation, but even
And then-
culturally,
I know,
I mean, like Christian women were having to prostitute themselves just to pay for food. So I don't think it's as public as the Weimar Republic, but it's getting pretty close.
There are similarities. The question is, are there similarities? Yeah, there are.
Yeah, and that's just another reason. So it's like, is it a bunch of anti-Semitic Reformed pastors like you and Andrew Isker and Brian Sauvé that have got this in the Reformed Church? No, TikTok, X, Candace Owens, Martyr Made podcast on Tucker Carlson. Like that's what got the ball rolling, and then the only question is just within Reformed church, it got the ball rolling everywhere, including Reformed churches, not especially Reformed churches, but including Reformed churches. And Reformed churches, I think, are just a little bit more open because they tend to be less dispensational. That's all it is. It's just theologically, they're not Zionists, right? Like we're not John Hagee. So because of that, there was just more willingness to listen to something like the Martyr Made podcast. Like the new Fear and Loathing in the New Jerusalem. The 6-part series.
His World War II series is going to be great. I'm excited.
Going to be
for
awesome.
it.
Yeah, because he's not unhinged.
He's a good
but
historian.
He is truthful, and he's a good historian, and he's a good storyteller.
Yep.
But sticking to historical fact. And so anyways, so that's what, it wasn't Reformed pastors planting seeds of anti-Semitism, which is a made-up word. I don't even like the framing because it's a Marxist framing. But it was the dam breaking, the flood of, it's that technological innovation. Gutenberg printing press comes on the scene. Well, internet, if you want to blame someone, you need to blame who is it? John Kerry or not John Kerry? Al Gore.
He invented the internet.
He invented the internet. It's his fault. It's not me and Brian Sauvé. It's Al Gore. No, but it's the internet, it's social media, and it's now X. Those are your big factors, and it's Tucker Carlson, and it's Candace Owens. It's these things. It's the fall of the legacy media and the rise of the new press. That's what it is. Alternative media. That's what it is. Yep. That's the source. And then if there is any more of a propensity for reform within Reformed churches to look into these issues, it's the fact that Reformed people typically, because of their covenantal theology, tend to be less Zionist, and that totally makes sense. And Reformed pastors need to know that some of their parishioners will go too far, but most aren't. Most aren't. And so, anyway, so we're going to have to navigate it. And then the last thing I was going to say, and it's also, I think there are parallels from the Weimar Republic to what's going on right now in these United States. But in that sense, there are parallels, and I think we can look to that, and I think that can be wise and helpful in terms of looking at problems and looking at, if we don't deal with this is what can come about. But in terms of looking for solutions, I think that Germany did some good things, believe it or not, right? Like Nazis drank water, and so do I. Sorry. I think like certain tax credits, for being
families.
pro-children, having children is a good thing, and there's going to be a public benefit to that. It's a good thing.
Banning perversion. They ban
banning perversion
homosexuality
from the libraries and all those things. It's a good thing. It's just objectively good. However, look to the parallels for the problems, recognize that they had some solutions that were good, and some that were absolutely too far and immoral. So look to the parallels with the problems. In terms of solutions, though, gosh darn it, I'm not German. God bless Germany, but I'm an American, red-blooded, proud to be American. I'm going to look to Bible first as a Christian, and then American, not German, but American history second as an American. So when I'm looking at parallels for the problem, diagnosing the problem, I do look at 1930s Germany. When I look for solutions, I'm looking to the founders of my country, because I think they were explicitly Christian, and they were more godly men. They were better men, and they had more biblical, better solutions. So that's what I want to keep pointing people towards. Stephen Wolfe, the same kind of thing. It's like, he's, as the kids say, he would be J-pilled, not unhinged, but he he's done the reading.
He knows.
He's done the reading. He knows. But he's like, no, I'm not gonna try to attempt to lionize Hitler. One, he doesn't feel like it's historically defensible. And two, he's like, we don't need Hitler. One, was not a Christian prince. Number two, we don't need him to make him a Christian prince. We literally have
our tradition.
Christian princes.
Yeah.
We have George Washington. We have John Adams. We have Stonewall Jackson. We have Booker, or Cotton Mather. We're good. We've got Winthrop. We've got
There's nothing innovative about like ban wicked things and promote good things.
Right.
Like, well, Germany did this, that, or the other.
It's Romans 13.
Awesome. Like they're not the only group of people in the world that ever said wickedness shouldn't be allowed in the public square. So it's not like we have this tool and we uncover it. Like, here's the secret. You use political power, like Romans 13 says, to get rid of wickedness. Awesome. Okay, got that. Now we need some solutions for a unified set of states gathered underneath a federal government with 3 legislative branches. Well, how do we work within that? And what's the way out of the 2-party gridlock system, et cetera?
Yep.
We'll come back to Glorious and Free Ministries.
I want to tackle that one. Though.
Okay,
that's
go ahead. Let's come back to that. Yeah,
Jam.
Michael is a teacher and an author. So let's do that one right after. That's on writing. So we'll do that. Go down, Nathan, to the women's Bible studies. I saw it. I saw it, and I can't help myself. Here we go. So this is Aaron Perryman again, which honestly, $500 super chat. You gotta give her another question. She earned it. Question: should women teach Bible studies? Answer: no. No, all right. I'm somewhat serious, but and then she fleshes it out in parentheses. She says to other women only, of course. Or is this something only for men to do? So this is, in a nutshell, this is my position. It's like, well, what about Titus 2? Older women training younger women. Yes, of course. That's Bible. I like the Bible. I'm pro Bible. But what is always said by the complementarian, functionally egalitarian, crew is they'll point to Titus 2 and they'll say, well, so women, they can't preach on Sunday, or even outside of Sunday, if it's a mixed group of men and women, at a conference or something, they shouldn't teach. But older women can teach, to an exclusively female crowd, especially older women. And in terms of, what are they going to teach? Well, it says, Titus 2 says they should teach the good. And I would just want to say, just finish the text. I'm on board, but let's just, everything that you just said so far, I agree with. Let's just keep reading. And if you finish the text, the way I read it, hermeneutically, is the good is the headline. And then it's like, teach them content, substance, a curriculum that is objectively good. And what is the good? And then Paul lists it. And what he lists is all things dealing with a woman's uniquely domestic, feminine role in the home on a daily basis. How to be submissive to their husbands, lovers of children, loving their children, not given to much wine, not given to gossip, which men can gossip, but there are certain sins that men are more inclined towards, and there are certain sins that women are more inclined towards. So even when it says teaching the good in terms of which sins to avoid, even the sins listed are, I would argue, predominantly sins that have more of a feminine inclination. So everything that Paul lists, so I don't think it's women, as long as there's not men in the crowd, women can do a Bible study and teach theology proper, the Trinity, the doctrine of impassibility, divine simplicity. They can be teaching the hypostatic union. They can be teaching, Reformed soteriology, political philosophy, anything that's good. Anything that's good as long as there's only women being taught. I don't think that's what Paul's saying. I think what he's saying is they teach the good. And what is the good? Keep reading how he describes it. And what he describes is teaching those things that are uniquely domestic and feminine when it comes to the practical life of a woman, the practical life, her relationship with her husband, her relationship with her kids, her relationship with other women, not to be a gossip and given to much wine, to be a busybody. Those are the kinds of things that are mentioned. So I think to have women-only contexts with older women teaching women, not theology in a macro general sense, but teaching them theology, all biblical theology
applied,
but applied practically to those things unique to a woman. So here's what the Bible says, and particularly we want to talk about how does this relate to avoiding gossip? How does this relate to being a mother? How does this relate to being a wife and being submissive in your marriage? How does it? I'm all for that. What I'm not for is women in the public sphere talking to and saying, well, my podcast is for women, or my conference circuit is for women, or my book is for women, but then teaching something that's not really uniquely for women.
Right.
It's just a general political content or general theological content, and you might even be right. I'm not even saying that your general theology is bad theology, or your general political philosophy is bad political philosophy. But it's not just, well, men might tune into your podcast. That wouldn't be my argument, because men shouldn't tune into the podcast. Like if you're a man, you're listening to Ali Beth Stuckey, like start listening to Orrin McIntyre, start listening to Steve. What's wrong with you? Stop it. Stop that. That's my biblical counsel. Stop it. So I'm not going to fault her or any other, female podcaster for men tuning in. That's not their fault. But what I will say is, one, if you're a woman in a particular stage of life where you have young children, then make sure that your teaching of women is not interfering with the home. And so maybe you can streamline it. Maybe I don't know. God alone sees the heart. I don't know. I don't have surveillance cameras on female podcasters, and so I don't want to be too presumptuous here, because that wouldn't be fair. But I would say that if you have a 5-day a week podcast, that's a lot of podcasting. Yep. I dabble in podcasting myself. It takes time, and so I would just say, so one, if you're a woman, you should be teaching women. If men tune in, that's not your fault. I won't fault you there. But what stage of life are you in? Do you have young children in the home? Then you need to be especially present. So I think your podcasting should be strategic and streamlined and simple. Maybe you don't go into the studio, you do it at home like Lexi does with Brian, after the kids go to bed, whatever. Those are practical advice, and it probably fewer and further between, like once a week instead of once a day, those kinds of things. And then number 2, and this is the big one, landing the plane, Titus 2, you're teaching women. So the Bible does let women teach women, and the Bible does let women teach women the Bible, but it's the Bible particularly applied, and it's applied to women being womanly. It's teaching the good of Scripture, the theological, Christian, overarching good of the Bible, but particularly applied to being a wife, being a mom, not being a gossip, these kinds of things. So that should be, if a woman's listening to your podcast and it's just political current events and cultural events, and it's just kind of general, and it's not uniquely geared towards women, then I don't think that's Titus 2. I just don't think that's Titus 2. But if it's once a week, Bright Hearth, and the name of the podcast and the sole subject of the podcast is, they recently did a whole podcast on cleaning supplies with chemicals and how to protect your family with sanitation. Yeah, and then like cooking and seed oils and of course, like tons of them on wifely submission, and then a ton of them on parenting. And again, I'm talking about Bright Hearth with Brian Sauvé and Lexi Sauvé, recorded once a week, if that, audio only, in bed at 9 p.m. when the kids are asleep, on uniquely domestic, household, wifely things. That is fine.
You never see Lexi on King's Hall or
right, and I still probably wouldn't have Lexi come on the show, and partly because Brian would probably say no.
Yeah.
And he would be right, because even though I would I wouldn't have her to come on and talk about political philosophy, it would be about cleaning supplies or something like that for those women who in our audience who listen, all 13% of you, and that wouldn't technically be wrong. In the same way, it wasn't wrong when I had Rosario Butterfield, but like I said earlier in the episode, right now feminism is so predominant that I just don't like the scripture says, avoid every appearance of evil. It wouldn't be evil in the objective, but in the subjective optic, it could continue promoting, because people they would point to it and say, well, Joel's patriarchal and he's okay with it. And then what they would do is they would have women, not once every 6 months like I have, but they'd have women come on the podcast
Every other appearance.
to talk about pushing the Overton window with political discourse and theological discourse, and using a woman as a pawn, because a man might get more flack, and it wouldn't be unique to the feminine domestic role, or like it would be abused. That's my position. So women, can they do a Bible study? Yes, for only women, like the person who asked the question said. Yes, they can do a Bible study only for women. But if it's only for women, it needs to be related. Its contents need to be related to womanly things. Right. And if it's like, well, but what if women want to learn from the Bible about theology proper? Here's the beautiful thing. The Lord's Day is not only for men.
Yep.
The women get to sit. So now, switching from Titus 2, last thing I'll say is 1 Timothy 2, now, verses 9 through 15. Paul says a woman must learn, which was countercultural for the time. Right. Because a lot of women were uneducated. They viewed it as, what's the point? Why does she need to learn? Well, she does need to learn, especially when you think of who's typically doing the lion's share of the homeschooling. Like, do you want your kids to be dumb? Like, well, you need your wife to be learned. So we want women to read. We want them to learn. So we first talked about teaching. I've told you what I think about that. Now learning. We're not saying that women shouldn't learn. Paul says a woman must learn. And the only thing he says is he qualifies what demeanor, what disposition she should learn with, a quiet and submissive disposition. And then he says, I don't allow her to teach or exercise authority over man. That's two prohibitions, not one. It's not teaching with authority. It's teaching or authority. Neither of those is permissible, exercising authority over men or teaching over men. So, but then cross-reference to Titus 2, older woman can teach younger women. But I think the curriculum is also contained in Titus 2. If it's the only way it's appropriate for women to teach is if it's a woman-only context. If it's a woman-only context with a woman teaching, then the subject matter should be womanly things. And then if you're saying, so should women only learn? Now we're not talking about teaching, we're talking about learning. Women should only learn womanly things? No, I never said women can't go to church.
Right. Yep. Calvin's Institute is not guarded for
right. I never said a woman can't read Calvin's Institute.
Right.
Yep. That would be my answer. That is always, not always, because I had to learn how to talk. I've been in development, but for the last
Since
3 years,
flared up about 2 years ago. It's a big question.
Definitely the last 2 years. I think arguably 3 years. That has been my position. It has been misrepresented a million times.
Yep.
But that's my position, and I think it's a thoroughly biblical and reasonable position. All right, let's go to Michael's question about.
I'll just tackle it quickly.
Right.
It's in the question.
Yep. Go
Glorious and free,
right there.
Glorious and free. What sort of stories or genres of fiction would you like to see more Christian authors try to write and to tell good Christian stories? And then he says, God bless and Merry Christmas from your Canadian ally. And we established earlier he has written at least one children's book. This is something, my training is in creative writing. And so I'm currently working on developing a project on an American mythology. And I think to answer your question, I actually talked to Stephen Wolfe about this recently. I think that Christians, so you're in Canada, I'm in the US, Christians need to recapture the stories that honor and inspire and motivate the spirit of their nation. And so that's I don't know what that looks like in a Canadian context or if you're writing in England, but I think we need the types of stories, like I'm thinking the Arthurian legend for England. Like we need things that embody the vision of your nation, and particularly, it doesn't have to be the gospel presentation at the end of every story, but in a godly, inspiring, courageous, well-written way. Christians need to write the stories that inspire the spirit of their nation as they conceive it in the best possible Christian way.
I like that. That's really good. Yep. Nathan, did we have any more super chats?
We do have some.
Also, Nathan, can you just, I'd like to know how many people are watching. If you can give me X and, okay. Is that combined?
Yeah.
Yep. Okay. All right, here we go. Let's go ahead and make this the last one for today.
Well, we've got Big Rig Butters that we have to read, Joel. He says, if I hand you a check for $5,000 at Trash World, will you enter the Sandman on the Piccolo remix?
For $5,000. Yeah.
But Bitcoin is 85,000 at the time too.
Well, here's the thing. I don't think I can. I could dabble. I don't think I could play that.
What if we
though.
dabbed the piccolo in?
Yeah,
Would that be
we could try to
acceptable?
dub it. Somebody else said the other Paul. He said it says $5, but it's actually Bitcoin, so I win. Yeah, I doubt that he
Drop
just
500 G's.
I doubt he just gave us $500,000.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
We're not even set up to receive Bitcoin.
Yeah.
That'd be great if we were. Okay, so then we had super chats from
Gabriella.
Connor Suba said Merry Christmas. Connor
kind.
Suba, thank you so much. Generous gift. All right, and then I think, is this the last one now,
yeah,
Nate?
Yep.
Gabriel Ornelas. Someone want to read that?
If the Constitution contains an anti-Christian provision, should you still follow it or act to change it, or can you rebel against it? It's a good question.
I'm going to go with, you fall back on what you know, right? Doug Wilson said it's permissible to resist the tyrannical income tax rate, but it might not be wise for you to be in jail for the rest of your life and leave your kids. So if there's a provision in the Constitution that requires sin, we must disobey it.
Right.
But if there's something in there that is tyrannical and in that sense, ungodly, unbiblical, unchristian, you can bear up under that.
Yeah. I would struggle to say within the Constitution and then the amendments to it, because you can get really picky with proof texting and like, well, this is sin, this is not. Like even the 19th Amendment, someone's pointed out, I think it was Philip Derrida, like one of the reasons they gave women the right to vote was there was a lot of male Irish and Catholic immigrants coming in. And so the Anglo-Protestants that were there actually gave women the right to vote, and so that their vote wouldn't be eroded, which is kind of the particular in that scenario.
Right.
There was some support for like, hey, well, let's maybe have women vote. All that being said,
Also, widows who became the head of their
widows
estate.
became heads of household. So like we push back against the 19th Amendment.
Right.
We think it should go away. But there are particular cases where it would not be black and white, division of the household vote, sin, there could be mitigating factors. So I would say I would struggle to find in the Constitution, in the amendments that have followed up to it, true sin. What we're dealing with is the interpretation, like the Civil Rights Act, to where it creates protected class, to where it's discriminatory. So all that being said, Peter, they were under a wicked emperor.
Yep.
Honor the emperor.
Honor the
give
emperor,
respect
yep.
to him. So in almost all cases, and I can't imagine a law, well, I'm sure it's happened, but like you as a Christian must go and bow down to this idol. Like that hasn't happened for a long time in the West.
The pinch of incense to Caesar, but that was a very long time ago.
So if we're not truly talking in those scenarios,
Yeah.
pinch of incense to an idol, closing your church because of COVID,
Right.
I think you do have to obey, but you fight through the legal mechanisms. Whoa. This application that a church has to hire a diverse range of individuals, absolutely those you push back on and say, for one, that's not the intention of what was laid there. It would not have been in the founding fathers' ideals for the Constitution. And I refuse to apply it in this way to my church and hire, someone that's gay or what have you, not Christian.
Yep.
That's well said.
Yep.
All right. One last time. This is our last live stream of the year. Very Merry Christmas to all of you. Our schedule for next year, we're going to start January 6th. That'll be our first time. And that's the first Monday of the new year, 2025. And that's going to start our new schedule of Monday, 3 times a week, Monday, Wednesday, Friday at 3 p.m. Central Time, live streaming for about an hour and a half to 2 hours, from like 3 to 4:30, 3 to 5, 3 times a week. And we'll try basically like breaking it up each episode into like 3 segments where we're bringing something that we want to talk about. Maybe we're handling a current event. Maybe we're handling a doctrine or a text. Or some controversy, I'm sure. And then also, in one of the segments, we will try to somewhat regularly have a guest. We're thinking January 6th to have maybe Charles Haywood to talk about, the J6ers and Trump pardoning and, rewarding enemies, crushing enemies, rewarding friends. And then the last segment, we want to continue to engage with you guys and reward you who are watching us live, engaging in the chat and answering questions. So 3 times a week for about an hour and a half to 2 hours each time, Monday, Wednesday, Friday, starting January 6th, 3 p.m. Central Time. In each episode, probably 2 or 3 segments, we're bringing something to the table we think needs to be talked about, maybe piping in a guest for a segment, and then engaging the chat and doing questions and answers. And then in addition to that, we'll also have the Friday special. That's going to be 8 p.m. on Fridays. So Friday you'll have the live stream at 3, but then later we'll remind you guys, hey, it's Friday. Remember, 8 p.m. Central Time. The special's coming out, and starting January 10th, that Friday, January 10th, we'll start the 9-part series. It's been on our Patreon, exclusive to Patreon members. It will officially go public, and that's the 9-part series with myself and Pastor Andrew Isker on all things Israel. How should Christians think about the modern state of Israel? And so it's 9 episodes. So we'll have 9 weeks from January, February, March, where we are doing that on Fridays at 8 p.m., the Friday special. And then that's Q1, Q2 will be Stephen Wolfe. We just finished recording a 10-part series on Christian nationalism with Stephen Wolfe, and that will be Fridays at 8 p.m. starting in April. And if you want to get all those things ahead of time,
that's starting in January. It's free
publicly.
in April. It's public.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. So public, Isker public in January through March, and then Wolf public, YouTube and X and everything, April through June. But if you want to get it, it's available now for private for our Patreon exclusive members. The whole series, ad-free with Isker, all 9 episodes, you can get right now if you go to patreon.com/Right Response Ministries. Patreon.com/Right Response Ministries. You can get all 9 episodes of me and Isker on Israel ad-free right now. So you don't have to wait through all of Q1 for them to come out one at a time each week. And by January 6th, the whole 10-part series with Dr. Stephen Wolfe will also be available for our Patreon members. Yeah. That one, you would have to publicly, if you want to watch it on YouTube or X or something, you would have to wait all the way until April, and you wouldn't get the final episode until June. Right. Coming out one per week with 10 episodes. But right now, you can get all 9 episodes with Isker, Patreon, and publicly, they'll start January 10th. And then starting January 6th, you can also on Patreon get all 9 episodes with Isker on Israel and all 10 episodes with Stephen Wolfe on Christian nationalism, starting in just 3 weeks. That'll be available in January. And that one, if you wait publicly, you'd have to wait till April, May, and June. So again, that's patreon.com/Right Response Ministries. It's the lowest tier, a silver tier club member. Costs you $5 a month, less than a cup of coffee these days, sadly. And you could watch it, cancel your membership, and watch everything in a month and be done. Or you could stay on if you want to support us. But again, it's patreon.com/Right Response Ministry. So that's how the Friday special will work. And so that's our weekly lineup starting January 6th, that Monday. It's going to be 3 live streams, Monday, Wednesday, Friday, every week. And then Friday evening, that's in the afternoon, 3 p.m. Central Time. And then Friday evenings, 1 Friday special. And then in addition to that, we'll start putting out some clips on Tuesdays and Thursdays and Saturdays from the live stream, and occasionally from one of the Friday specials. And then, of course, there'll also be the Lord's Day sermon that's available on Sunday. Yep. And that's what we're doing with Right Response Ministries. So go over to X. If you don't follow us on X, make sure to go there because you can get all the videos. They stream on X, and you can follow other little things that are happening. Go to X, and then the handle is @RightResponseM. @RightResponseM. And then if you're on YouTube, make sure you subscribe. Make sure you click the bell. Turn on the notifications. And God bless you. Merry Christmas. And we will see you again, Lord willing, in the new year.